I've been in this new world for 3 days now, and I've finally figured out what's going on. My name is Ron Broccoli. Well, it wasn't always. In my past life, I was Nyeli, a self-made man who clawed his way up from nothing, orphan kid, no parents who cared, raised by my grandma until she died. I dropped out of school, worked construction, ran businesses, went broke when a buddy stabbed me in the back, then built it all up again. I just made it. Money, freedom, the good life. Then a truck hit me on my way home, and I woke up here. Here is the Thailand continent, year 1580. It's like medieval Europe, except there's battle energy, magic, dragons, and elves. I took over the body of Ron Broccoli, second son of Baron Broccoli. The family name comes from our broccoli sprite, a little magical creature that's the foundation of our house. Ron had real talent for battle energy training and was sent to the Marigold Knight Order under Marquis Cologne to make something of himself, since he couldn't inherit the family title. He trained there 4 years, became a low-rank squire, and was one step from mid-rank. Then a border war broke out between the Bronze Duchy and the Black Iron Duchy. The original Ron fought hard, earned merit, then got caught in an ambush. He broke through to mid-rank squire in the heat of battle and somehow saved Viscount Evan, the Marquis's eldest son and heir, dragging him to safety. But the effort killed him. That's when I arrived. I found a bloodjade gourd floating in my mind. It's something I kept from my old life, a trinket I picked up doing shady antique deals. I'm pretty sure it's the reason I survived the crossing. I haven't had time to study what it really does. I'm stuck in a frontline camp recovering from wounds. For now, it waits. The good news is I absorbed the original Ron's memories and language, so nobody suspects a thing. I've been lying in my tent, running breathing techniques to heal, eating huge meals. My body's recovering fast. Then Viscount Evan came to visit. He's a chubby guy in his 30s, round face, big beard, warm smile. He told me the war is ending. Our Bronze Duchy won, and the Grand Duke is handing out pioneer noble titles. Marquis Cologne has a few slots, and Evan is giving one to me. I nearly lost my mind with excitement. A pioneer noble title, most likely a baron rank. It means they draw a piece of land outside the border, and you go carve out your own domain. It's dangerous, the death rate is high, but it's a real title with real land. Plenty of high-rank squires would kill for this chance and never get it. I got lucky for 3 reasons. I come from a noble family, I saved the Marquis's heir, and I reached mid-rank squire at 18, which means I have a shot at becoming a full knight someday. The Marigold family is betting on my future. In this world, dragons and elves are everything. Dragons produce all metal, ores, and magic metals. Elves grow plants and magic herbs. Nobles control both. Low and mid-rank nobles hold elves. High nobles like dukes and royals hold dragons. Knights and mages need noble patrons to advance, and nobles need knights to protect their power. It's a locked system. A full knight is considered serious combat power anywhere. Swear loyalty to a lord, and you get at least a landed barony. Most baron and viscount families only have squire-level fighters serving them. Counts and marquises might have a real knight. Dukes sometimes have great knights. And to build a kingdom, you need a dragon. I wrote home that same day. My father, Baron Henry Broccoli, was thrilled. Our family has only been around for 150 years. The first Baron was a squad leader who earned his title in battle, got rewarded with 1 broccoli sprite and 3 sprite bugs, and built the whole family from that. Now, after all this time, the family is about to have its second Baron. I lay back and thought, not bad. Last life I started with nothing. This time I woke up as a noble son with a title on the way. Sure, I have to fight for it. But when have I ever been afraid of that? After the border conflict ended, I followed the Knight Order back to the Marquis's territory. Thanks to Viscount Evan's healing potions and my own battle energy training, my body recovered pretty well. I didn't have to go back to training with the Order anymore. Instead, I got a place in town to wait for my noble title. Finally, after nearly half a month in this world, I had some privacy to study my cheat item, the bloodjade gourd. I tried the blood drop thing, nothing. Opened the lid, empty inside. But when I pushed battle energy into it, it reacted. After a lot of testing, I figured it out. This thing is a monster refining pot. You feed it raw meat and flesh, and it breaks it down into a thick, blood-red liquid. Takes dozens of pounds of meat to get just 1 drop. I wasn't stupid enough to drink it right away. I caught a rat and fed it a drop instead. The rat swelled up to double its size, muscles bulging and twitching everywhere. Then it exploded, dead as dead gets. But the effect was clear. Over the next 2 days, I secretly bought loads of meat and caught more animals to experiment on. The conclusion: the liquid strengthens the body and heals injuries. Grain and plants can be refined too, but the results aren't worth much. The pot runs on battle energy to absorb material, then refines it on its own. A few 100 pounds takes about 30 minutes at most. It clearly has way more potential I haven't unlocked. I diluted the liquid I produced and used it on myself. My body hit a peak it had never reached before, and my mid-rank squire strength was fully consolidated. Feeling that energy surged through me, something wild stirred inside. I was never a calm or good man in my previous life. This world with its supernatural powers, a cheat item in my hands, a barony on the way. Everything felt even better than before. Then one night, a nervous little maid knocked on my door and whispered that the madam wanted to meet me at the usual place tomorrow evening. My stomach dropped. I dug through the original Ron's memories, the ones I'd skimmed over because they weren't important. Turns out this guy had been a total dog since he was 16. He'd visited every brothel in the Marquis territory and seduced young noble ladies left and right. And a year ago, he'd started sleeping with Viscount Evan's wife, Lady Irina Narcissus. My brain was a mess. This was the wife of the man who just handed me a barony. How was I supposed to be his loyal brother after this? Well, I already had the benefits in hand. My personal code has always been simple. First rule after making it: loyalty. Second rule: forget where you came from. Sometimes those two don't mix well. Still, looking through the memories, I had to admit, the original Ron had great taste. I had no choice but to go. The next evening I showed up at the meeting spot, a secluded courtyard. Inside, behind thin curtains and dim lamplight, lay Lady Irina. Late 20s, pale skin, stunning face, eyes full of seduction. Her cheeks were flushed. She must have been feeling unwell, probably a fever. She pouted about me not visiting sooner. I sweet-talked her, kissed her, and let things take their natural course. She was a graduate of the Duchy's Knight Academy and had battle energy herself, so she could handle plenty. After thoroughly checking her credentials and verifying her practical experience, I spent another half hour calming her down. Lying there afterward, she let something slip. She'd put in good words for me to help secure the Pioneer Barony. It wasn't just Evan's gratitude. She'd pushed for it too. Made sense. If Evan had died in that ambush, she'd have lost her position as Viscountess and her future as a Marchioness. Saving Evan meant saving her comfortable life. I snuck out late that night feeling like all the refining liquid I'd consumed was wasted on this workout. Over the following weeks, I kept secretly buying meat to refine more liquid. My body grew stronger and stronger. I met with the lady a few more times, and by the end she could barely walk straight. Finally, Evan sent word: time to meet the Marquis. The war rewards were being handed out. After the audience, Evan cheerfully introduced me to the other nobles, praising my talent and bravery, calling me Baron Broccoli already. I smiled modestly while thinking to myself, yeah, I was pretty brave last night too. After socializing with the nobles, I learned what came next. I'd travel to the Bronze Duchy's capital, Adrian, with 2 other knights to officially receive our Pioneer Baron titles. I received my official title in the capital. I'm now a real baron. Walking down the King's Road on my way home, I wasn't alone anymore. I had a whole caravan behind me. Dozens of carts loaded with spears, iron swords, bows, tin sets of armor, and farming tools. I bought it all in the capital where metal prices are the lowest. Out in the frontier, this stuff would cost several times more. The capital has a whole system set up for pioneer nobles like me. Noble families and big merchant guilds offer loans, and you pay them back later with shop locations, trade rights, and tariffs from your territory. I took out the maximum loan I could get, 2,000 gold dragons. In this world, copper, silver, and gold coins exchange at 1 to 100. A loaf of black bread costs 2 coppers. A commoner doesn't earn a single gold dragon in a whole year. As part of the title, the Grand Duke gave me 2 spirit bugs, a wheat spirit bug and a dandelion spirit bug. The dandelion one is a magic herb type, meant to make sure nobles can supply their knights with training potions. I spent 1,500 gold dragons at the spirit bug market and bought 2 more, a sweet potato bug and a black rye bug. Both are great for pioneering since food comes first. Lady Irina also slipped me 500 gold dragons, which made the purchase possible. Magic herb spirit bugs are insanely expensive, at least triple the price of farming ones, and they get snatched up the moment they appear on the market. Spirit bugs are adorable little things. Every creature instinctively wants to protect them. They live about 15 to 20 years. Small sprites live 50 years, big sprites 150, elemental spirits 500, and nature spirits 1,000. One farming spirit bug covers about 100 acres. A magic herb bug only covers 5. I spent every last coin from the loan and headed home to squeeze more out of my family. Along the way, I picked up some people. Hart Lintel, a mid-rank squire, almost 30, a down-on-his-luck noble knight I recruited in the capital. Dick Curtin, a rich merchant's son whose father donated 200 gold dragons for me to take him on as a squire. He's barely at beginner level in battle energy. The caravan also carried craftsmen, blacksmiths, carpenters, masons, bricklayers, all war prisoners sold as slaves. For them, being bought by a pioneer lord is actually not the worst deal. We need them, so most get freed after a few years of work. When we reached Broccoli territory, my father Henry Broccoli had everything ready for my arrival. I met the whole family. My older brother Oliver, a 20-year-old low-rank squire. My mother Gwen Kale, a low-rank mage apprentice. My little sister Ella, only 10, already showing mage talent. And my sister-in-law Sophia Watercress. Dealing with these people who think I'm their real son and brother was nerve-wracking. I watched every word, relied on the original Ron's memories, and leaned on the fact that he'd been away for years. I got through it. That evening there was a banquet. It wasn't just family. Every knight sworn to the Broccoli house, and every friendly noble showed up, all bringing their younger sons and spare heirs. This was my chance to recruit. These people I could trust because the families have history together. Knights brought their second sons forward. My mother's Kale family sent their heir to chat. The whole night I was surrounded, sizing up everyone, figuring out who was worth taking with me. After the party, father called me to his study. He told me the family would go all in. 5,000 gold dragons, 2,000 as a gift, 3,000 as a loan. That's more than the family earns in a year. They were betting everything on me. For spirit bugs, he offered me a choice: 1 magic herb spirit bug or 3 farming bugs. I chose the herb bug without much hesitation. I'd already bought 2 farming bugs in the capital, and magic herbs are what I need to support knights. Without knights, I'm dead in the frontier. Father agreed it was the right call. The Broccoli family has 3 small sprites and over 20 spirit bugs, which is decent for a barren house. He also gave me permission to recruit any of the noble and knight sons I'd spotted at the banquet. On top of that, I asked for guards, an administrator, and more craftsmen. He gave me 30 veteran soldiers, 10 craftsmen, and his best town administrator from Birch Town, a man with years of experience running a territory. I thanked him and promised not to let the family down. Inside, I was thrilled. Every resource I grabbed now meant a better chance of surviving out there. The wheels ground over gravel for over 2 weeks as we left the heartland of the Bronze Duchy and pushed north. The farther we went, the cooler it got. Farmland disappeared and was replaced by waist-high wild grass and bare gray rock. We reached the Skyfall Mountains, a massive range that cuts the continent in half. Civilized kingdoms to the south, frontier land to the north. At the Broken Blade Pass, I could see old arrowheads stuck in the rock walls and dried bloodstains. The place reeked of rust and rot. I asked Perrin Wheel, my administrator, about the dangers. The old man pushed up his copper-rimmed glasses and told me it wasn't just bandits. The frontier has no real law. Criminals from every nation hide out here. Some bandit gangs are 700 or 800 strong, enough to storm castles. Lords get killed out here every year. On top of that, there are monster clans, powerful magic beasts, and orc raiding parties. 700 bandits? At that point, they're not bandits anymore. They're probably some lord's secret army wearing a disguise. I figured I'd need to lay low at first. Loren Onion rode beside my carriage most of the way. He's a knight I recruited from the family's territory, a veteran mid-rank squire in his 30s who used to work as a mercenary in the frontier before coming home to serve as a cavalry instructor. I also had 5 low-rank squires and a potion-maker apprentice my father sent along. During the journey, I kept feeding beast meat into the refining pot whenever we hunted. The liquid didn't push me to high-rank squire yet, but my battle energy grew denser and my body was now as strong as a high-rank squire's. We crossed the Green River, the biggest waterway in the northern frontier, and 3 days later Oak City appeared on the horizon. It was built from massive oak logs and gray stone, walls over 10 meters high, flying 2 banners, the Bronze Duchy's brass dragon crest and the Mammon family's black wolf emblem. Marquis Mammon runs this place. It's the duchy's northern hub, where all new pioneer lords register. At the gate, the guard stopped us. When the bearded captain saw my baron's badge, he relaxed a little. I handed over my papers, tossed him a gold dragon, and he brightened right up. He told me to park the caravan at the camp outside the walls to avoid cargo taxes, then sent a soldier to guide them. I entered the city with a few squires. The streets were lined with log buildings, taverns, blacksmith shops, general stores. The air smelled like ale, sweat, and animal dung. Drunk mercenaries bragged outside pubs. People gambled with dice in corners. At the Lord's Manor, a stiff-faced official in a wig checked my documents and pulled out a huge map. He pointed to the far western edge of the frontier, north of the Green River. Baron Broccoli, your territory is here. The River Bend domain on the Greenwood Plains. Roughly 30 kilometers on each side. Blackstone Mountains to the east, 2 territories west of you is the coast. I looked at the map. My land was barely marked, just a few vague terrain features. I asked about neighbors. He said 7 or 8 other lords were nearby, then handed me some files on them. He added the rules. For the first year, no noble is allowed to attack a new pioneer lord. That's Marquis Mammon's law, and a recorder would be stationed in my territory to enforce it. After 1 year, keeping my land is my own problem. After 3 years, duchy officials come to confirm my territory's size, so if I succeed, I should expand north as much as possible. I got my territory documents and a bronze token representing my authority. With the token, I could claim the duchy's pioneer support package from Oak City, 1,000 serfs at half price. Walking out of the manor, I stood in the street and couldn't help but grin. Baron from day one, the refining pot in my pocket, land under my name. I felt like shouting to the world, who else has it this good? The next morning I bought loads of grain and supplies in Oak City, picked up my 1,000 serfs, and hit the road early. 3 days later, we finally reached my land. Late summer wind carried the smell of wild grass across my face. I pulled up my horse and looked out at the endless plains stretching to the horizon. A branch of the Green River wound through the lowlands like a silver ribbon, its banks choked with reeds thick enough to hide a deer. Loren Onion had already scouted the area with 2 guards. He pointed to a raised hill to the northeast, flat on top with a good view for 2 kilometers in every direction, hard ground below for driving stakes, and close to water. I rode over and checked it myself. The hill backed up against a natural cliff covered in thorny bushes that blocked the rear. The front was open grassland where nothing could sneak up unseen. Good spot. I told Perrin to get the serfs clearing at least 200 meters of ground and cutting trees for a temporary fence. I made it simple. If the fence isn't standing by dark, their bread ration gets cut in half. That got them moving. While they worked, I took Loren and hard upstream along the river. The water was shallow, barely reaching our horses' legs, with smooth pebbles on the bottom and little silver fish darting around. About a mile up, Loren spotted some rotting wood across the river, the remains of an old cabin. We waded over. The place had been abandoned for years, weeds growing waist-high around it, broken clay bowls in the corner. Some earlier settlers who didn't make it. Maybe beasts got them. Maybe they couldn't survive the winter. But the soil along the riverbank was richer than elsewhere, with wild wheat growing in patches. I made a mental note. Good place for a rye farm later. Back at camp, the fence was halfway up. Hundreds of leg-thick logs pounded into the dirt, gaps filled with sharpened branches woven together. Rough, but solid. The blacksmith already had his forge going, hammering out gate bolts and fence latches. Perrin had the serfs stacking stones outside the fence for a low wall to stop animals from ramming through. Dick was crouched by a cart with a ledger, checking supply bags, looking stressed. I sent Hart with 5 men to the western woods for bark and straight timber. We needed watchtowers up by nightfall. Then trouble. At the northwest corner of the fence, some serfs were huddled around something on the ground, looking scared. I walked over. A pile of fresh bones, still smeared with dark red scraps of flesh. A wrecked leather shield nearby with a claw marked the size of my palm. Troll claws, an older serf whispered. I've seen them before. These things can rip a cow apart. The bones were no more than 3 days old. I told Perrin to speed everything up and get the gate installed now. I sent 2 men to warn Hart not to stay in the woods past dark. Hart came back before sunset with a full cart of bark and timber, plus 2 deer they'd killed at the forest edge. He said the woods seemed clear, but they'd found goblin tracks and hadn't gone deeper. Loren examined the troll claw print, and his face went grim. Fresh. The thing was still nearby. We'd need the watchtowers up tonight. So we worked through the night. By the time full dark came, the fence was done. 2 heavy wooden gates locked shut with thick timber bars behind them. 4 watchtowers stood at the corners with torches burning on top, lighting up the surroundings. The serfs crammed into makeshift grass shelters, nobody talking, just listening to the occasional howl of some unknown beast echoing across the plains. That night, I gathered my people in a hastily built wooden hut and spread the map on the table. Perrin said our first priority should be building a proper manor. This camp was only good as a temporary base. I agreed and put him and Dick in charge of construction, leaving them enough guards. Tomorrow I'd take the knights out to explore the full territory. If we got the chance, we'd drive out whatever beasts were lurking nearby. Loren suggested he lead the scouting party while I stayed safe at camp, especially with that troll still out there. The others agreed. I turned them down. If I left them behind, I'd have to split my forces anyway. Better we all go together. The sun was barely up when I rode out with Loren and the guards to explore my territory. Dick stayed behind to manage the serfs. That kid has a talent for bossing people around. He was cracking his whip at some poor serf who dropped a stone, screaming about feeding him to the troll. Before I left, he came running over offering to pack extra food and send servants along. I told him to just watch the camp. This world has white-skinned and dark-skinned people. The dark-skinned ones come from the southwest of the continent. When the trading nations discovered them, big, strong, obedient, resistant to disease, they became a hot commodity. Massive slave trading built up a whole commercial federation called the Tidal Trade Alliance. We followed the river branch northward. I named it Clearwater River. The eastern side had rolling slopes covered in tall feather grass. The western side was forest edge, shadowy and deep. Goblins showed up first, ugly things with pumpkin-sized heads and rusty knives. They came chattering out of the trees like they owned the place. I said one word, shoot. 3 dropped with arrows in them. The rest scrambled back into the brush. Loren said they'd probably follow us by scent, but I didn't care. Mapping the land came first. 3 miles north, the river forked into a swamp. Dark green algae, startled water birds, flocks of wild ducks in the reeds. Loren suggested fencing it off as a hunting ground. I was more interested in the flat land beside it. The soil was dark brown and sticky, perfect for wheat. I had the guards plant a marker and noted it for Perrin to measure later. On the way back, we passed through a low pine forest and ran into knoll hyena men tearing apart a dead buffalo. They turned on us with red eyes. I drew my sword, battle energy glowing faint red along the blade, and called out positions. Loren on the left, guards covering both flanks. One swing took the first knoll's throat out. Loren's blade moved like a snake and finished 3 more. The rest fled into the pines. I wiped the blood off my sword and made a note. This forest needs clearing before we can build farms nearby. I didn't collect any of the beast corpses. The camp warehouse wasn't built yet, and I couldn't risk using the refining pot out in the open. We also found 2 hilltops perfect for watchtowers and a slope of clay soil good for making bricks. When we got back at sunset, the camp had changed. Dick had driven the serfs hard. A half-height stone wall now ringed the outside of the wooden fence. He came bouncing over like a rabbit, bragging about every detail. He'd even had my cabin swept 3 times and burned mugwort to keep the mosquitoes out. Perrin reported that the granary frame was up, but the serfs were exhausted. I gave them a half-hour rest and an extra loaf of black bread for dinner. Dick immediately ran to the serfs' shelter shouting about my generosity, making them kneel and give thanks. Watching them kowtow, I thought, I need to find a better way to motivate these people. Over the next 5 days, I fell into a routine. Mornings clearing out monsters with the guards, afternoons checking construction progress. On the 5th day, I stood in front of the finished manor and finally felt satisfied. The compound was 500 meters on each side. Thick log walls sunk deep in the ground, a half-meter trench dug around the outside, sharpened branches lining the top. The main gate was made from two massive oak trunks with a heavy crossbar behind it. The Broccoli family crest hung above the entrance. Inside, everything was organized. East side for me and the knights. My quarters had a proper stone foundation. West side for the serfs, their grass shelters replaced with basic wooden huts. In the center stood the granary and blacksmith shop side by side. Perrin had even dug drainage ditches inside the walls for heavy rain. Looking at the open land west of the manor, I saw thousands of acres waiting to be farmed. I gave Perrin new orders. Starting tomorrow, organize the serfs into teams of 50. The top 3 hardest workers in each team every day earn a merit point and get praised publicly. Accumulate 10 points, and you become a free citizen with the right to claim farmland in a designated area. The last place worker gets their dinner cut in half. Same rules for the slaves. I didn't mind serfs becoming free citizens. Even as free men, they'd never leave the territory. They'd still be working my land, growing my food, living under my rule. Free or not, they were still mine. The first big job was clearing farmland. We set fire to the wild grass and brush west of the manor, a controlled burn that lasted a full day. The flames ate through everything, killing the deep roots and turning it all to ash. Once it cooled, the serfs moved in with hoes, breaking apart the charred crust to reach the rich brown soil underneath. Dick stomped along the field edges, screaming at anyone who slowed down. I didn't stop him. Out here in the frontier, being soft with serfs means nothing gets done, and I'm not about to do that kind of work myself. Back at the manor, I opened 5 jade boxes. Each held a sleeping spirit bug and its companion, a half-foot-long spirit grass. The rose spirit grass glowed soft pink-purple, light flowing through it like something alive. That was the magic herb bug from my family. I planted the spirit grasses in the fields closest to the manor and assigned guards to watch them day and night. Ordinary crops went on the outer fields. Perrin mapped out 500 acres each of sweet potato, black rye, and wheat. When I placed the rose spirit grass into the soil, I packed jade stone and gold powder around it. Spirit bugs love eating that stuff. Every transplant stresses them a little, and too many moves can hurt their chances of evolving, so you feed them well to compensate. The moment the grass went in, the spirit bug in the jade box stirred awake, wiggled over to my hand, and started nibbling on gold. I could feel its happiness through our contract bond. Once full, it crawled back onto the grass, spread its tiny wings, flew 2 circles around it, and suddenly the surrounding earth lit up with a faint pink-purple glow. The air turned slightly sweet. That was its coverage zone, 100 acres. And those 100 acres would produce 4 times what serfs could grow on normal land. I planted all 5 grasses, wheat, black rye, dandelion, and both rose bugs. Within 2 days, seeds already started sprouting. The magic of spirit bugs is something else. But a problem appeared quickly. Even with the motivation system boosting morale, we didn't have enough hands. We needed people for construction and farming at the same time. I sent Hart and some guards to Oak City with 1,000 gold dragons to buy more serfs. 1 serf costs 1 gold coin, craftsmen 5 to 10. My funds were draining fast, down from 5,000 to just over 3,000, and now another 1,000 gone. After the spirit grasses settled for 2 days, I collected the bugs back into their jade boxes. Perrin placed them in the spirit house, a specially built cabin with moisture-proof walls, plants the bugs enjoy, and wooden shelves for their boxes. They get fed jade powder daily, and the maids look after them. With the farming underway, I finally had time to do what I'd been itching for, hunting. I took the squires out to clear beasts and wild monsters from around the manor. The frontier is crawling with kobolds, gnolls, and goblins. These things breed faster than humans, whole litters at a time, fully grown in 2 or 3 years, impossible to tame. They're called the 3 pests. They destroy crops, steal food, and big groups can attack settlements. For most lords, they're a headache. For me, they're free material. I had the serfs dig a big pit inside the manor. The squires dumped every monster corpse into it, layered with firewood. Dick asked why we were bothering with creatures nobody eats instead of just leaving them in the wild. I didn't answer. I whipped him a few times instead. A lord doesn't explain himself to his subordinates on his own land. Once everyone cleared out, I jumped into the pit alone, fed every corpse into the refining pot, then lit the firewood to cover my tracks. Over the following days, the squires brought back dozens of bodies daily. The pot accumulated nearly half a cup of the red liquid. My body had already reached high-rank squire level in raw physical strength, but my battle energy reserves hadn't caught up yet. The body is the foundation. The stronger it is, the more energy it can hold. You train energy through breathing techniques. Use the energy to strengthen the body and repeat the cycle. But to speed up training, you need magic potions. Without them, you have to wait a day or two between sessions for enough energy to regenerate. I'd bought huge stocks of potions in the capital and Oak City, and I'd been drinking them like water. Combined with the refining pot liquid pushing my body forward, the cycle finally completed. I broke through to high-rank squire. I kept my breakthrough to high-rank squire secret. A man without hidden cards doesn't sleep well. The new serfs Hart bought from Oak City arrived, over 1,000 of them. I organized everything into 5 farming settlements. Sweet Potato Village near the water, 350 people. Black Rye Village to the west, 300. Wheat Village to the north, 300. Vegetable Village with 200 for growing greens. And Cattle Village to the southwest with 200 people tending 30 oxen and 60 pack horses. Each settlement got 1,000 acres to clear from roughly 5,000 total. Whichever settlement finished first, everyone in it earns a merit point. We lit the fires. Nearly 100 brush piles went up across the plains, smoke turning half the sky gray-black. The serfs controlled the burn along the boundary lines, and when it was over, nothing remained but charred ground ready for tilling. Next, I went to the guard barracks. My 30 soldiers from the Broccoli family were drilling in the yard. Loyal men who'd followed me all the way from home. I doubled their pay to 20 silver coins a month, enough to buy a sheep or a young cow. Then I pulled out a scroll, a knight's breathing technique copied from my family's collection. I told them Loren would teach them, but the method stays inside the barracks. No outsiders, no serfs. I also officially named Loren Onion as guard captain. They all dropped to their knees, swearing to serve me until death. Good. These men are my core fighting force, and making them stronger makes my territory safer. I also told Loren to start scouting the serfs for 50 new recruits, anyone with good merit records, quick hands, and strong bodies. Then Perrin came with bad news about money. We were down to just over 2,000 gold dragons. Harvest was still far off, meaning I'd have to keep buying grain. Metal supplies would run out after outfitting the new serfs with farm tools. I asked what the territory could produce. Perrin suggested timber, but there was nobody to spare for logging, and who'd buy it out here anyway? The shipping costs alone would eat the profits. He also mentioned hunting magic beasts for their cores and meat. A real frontier business, but magic beasts are dangerous. Losing men right now would cost more than the money earned. I remembered a rocky area I'd passed during my patrol where I'd seen some kobolds. I sent Hart to investigate. 3 days later, Hart came running back. They'd found a salt mine under the gravel. He held up a chunk of salt rock and scraped off powder with his sword. High purity, edible without refining. A small deposit, but enough to last the territory a long time. This changed everything. Salt means we don't have to buy it anymore, and we can sell the surplus to passing trade caravans for cash. I sent Loren with 20 guards to secure the site, and had Hart bring 50 serfs to set up a temporary camp and build a road connecting it to Cattle Village. I gave one strict order: tell everyone we're quarrying stone. Nobody mentioned salt. On the way back, the sunset was painting the clear water river gold and red. Then Loren spotted a group on the far bank. A big middle-aged man in silver-trimmed leather armor riding a black horse, a potato emblem on his banner, 30-some guards behind him. He noticed us too and raised his right hand, the standard greeting between frontier lords. I nodded back. We were too far apart to see faces clearly, but I could feel his presence. One of his knights whispered something to him. He shook his head, gave me a respectful gesture, and rode on until his column disappeared into the horizon. That's Lord Boris of Riverside Territory to the west, Loren said, his voice heavy. Word is he attacked Green Lake Territory to the south last year and grabbed a lot of land. He's ambitious. I filed that away and kept riding home. The recruitment notice went out 3 days ago, and the 50 new guard spots filled up immediately. The serfs were desperate for the chance. Now they were out in the training yard, shirtless, swinging wooden spears while Loren walked between the rows, smacking anyone with bad form. I stood by the watchtower watching them. Eager bunch, but they had no foundation. Loren told me it would take at least half a year to turn them into real fighters. I told him half a year was too long. Perrin brought me the books. We were down to 2,237 gold dragons, and that money had to stretch until the first harvest. The salt mine and brick kiln I'd planned couldn't start yet. Every serf was locked into farm construction. Sweet Potato Village's irrigation ditch was only half dug. Black Rye Village's granary had no roof. Wheat Village was 40% behind on tilling. I couldn't even spare a crew to cut timber from the oak forest. I told Perrin to pull serfs off non-essential manor work and focus everything on getting the 5 settlements operational. Food and shelter come first, everything else waits. The new guards were set at 8 silver coins a month, going up to 10 after 2 months. Plus, they'd earn free citizen status once they passed training. That kept motivation high. Meeting that Lord Boris by the river still nagged at me. I told Loren to send people out to gather information on the surrounding lords, especially Boris's riverside territory and the Green Lake territory he attacked. Then a blood-covered serf came stumbling from Sweet Potato Village, barely able to speak. Magic Beast Tiger. Attack. I drew my sword and rode out with Loren. When we reached the settlement, 3 serfs lay dead outside the fence, throats torn open by claws. A guard pointed toward the oak forest, a white tiger, fast as wind. The squire stationed there reported it was a wind shadow tiger, a mid-rank magic beast. White fur, shoots wind blades from its mouth. Even a decent mid-rank squire would struggle against one. I sent for the squires from the other settlements and organized the guards into 2 search teams, pushing into the forest with shields raised. I followed behind, running my battle energy quietly. I wasn't planning to reveal my high-rank strength, but I wouldn't let my men die for nothing either. 100 meters in, Loren raised his hand. Through the bushes, a pair of green eyes stared at us. White fur half hidden in the shadows. The thing looked nothing like the tigers I'd seen on the internet in my past life. It pounced. One white blur, and the first new guard lost his head before he could lift his shield. A wind blade followed, slicing another guard clean in half. Before it could strike again, Hart, the quiet knight who never says much, threw himself shield first into the beast and knocked it sideways. Loren charged in, and the guards completed the encirclement. The tiger crouched low, snarling, looking for an escape. I wasn't about to let that happen. I moved fast, my sword trailing faint red battle energy, and struck its paw. It howled and tried to run, but Loren pinned its hind leg with his blade. I gave the order, and the guards swarmed in. Dozens of spears punched through its body. The wind shadow tiger died screaming. Looking at the carcass, I calculated the value. The fur and crystal core could be sold. The flesh was beneficial for battle energy training. I had half the meat cooked and distributed to the squires and guards who had battle energy cultivation. The other half went into the refining pot. The magic beast liquid turned out to be different from regular monster extract. It contained traces of magic power that helped the body adapt to battle energy faster, basically reducing the need for expensive potions. This attack made one thing clear. My territory's defenses were still too weak. So I came up with a quiet solution. I mixed small amounts of the refined liquid into flour, rolled them into pills, and had the kitchen drop 2 into the knights' and guards' meat soup every day. Nothing dramatic. Just a slow, steady improvement that nobody would notice or question. Half a month passed, and the territory was starting to look like something real. 3 brick kilns were running at the clay mine, black smoke pouring into the sky. The 5 farming settlements were mostly built, so I shifted the serfs to the kilns and salt mine. The first kiln batch produced 5,000 large bricks, enough for 30 feet of wall. With day and night shifts and a proper quota system, the serfs didn't need constant whipping anymore. Just punish the bottom performers each week, and everyone else works hard on their own. My people call me a generous lord for it. I thought to myself, just wait, you'll all get to experience the full depth of my generosity eventually. The plan was simple. Replace every wooden fence with brick walls, starting with the manor, then each settlement in order. The salt operation was also up and running. Over 100 pounds of clean white salt per day. Then Loren came back with intelligence on the neighboring lords. To the east, Blackstone territory. Lord Horson, a lame old knight, who mines obsidian. He and Boris don't get along. To the southwest, Green Lake territory. Lord Austin was beaten by Boris last year and had to pay 3 spirit bugs as ransom to get himself back. His territory is half-wrecked now. Word is he's looking for allies against Boris. Then the main concern, Boris himself. Second son of a knight family, wandered different kingdoms as a young man, earned military merit in a war, even married the daughter of a count. 5 years ago, he came to the frontier and built a proper castle. His strength has been growing steadily, and he's aggressive about expansion. Here's the bad part. This year's new pioneer territories, mine and the Thicket Ridge territory to his north, basically boxed in his expansion routes. That's why he came scouting along my river. He probably checked out Thicket Ridge too. He's picking which one to hit. During my first-year protection period, with the Duchy's recorder stationed here, Boris won't attack openly. But he could sabotage my development, slow me down, and then strike after the year is up. He might even send men disguised as bandits. Though that's risky. If I fail within the first year, the Duchy might just send another lord to replace me. I told Perrin to prepare gifts. Tomorrow, send someone to Green Lake territory with an offer to trade grain. A friendly approach, nothing too forward. Perrin caught on immediately. I was trying to pull Green Lake to my side. One more friend means one less direction to worry about. On the training field, the 30 veteran guards from home were sitting cross-legged, practicing the breathing technique I'd given them. After 2 weeks of training plus the secret liquid in their daily soup, their bodies had toughened up fast. Nearly half of them could gather a rice grain-sized warm ball in their bellies, the battle energy seed, the very first step of a beginner squire. Without magic potions, growing that seed from rice grain to peanut size, low-rank squire level, would take at least a year. But the liquid had already strengthened their bodies enough that they didn't need to waste precious battle energy on physical conditioning anymore. The 50 new guards recruited from the serfs weren't ready for energy cultivation yet, but another couple weeks of meat soup should bring their bodies up to the baseline. They were already starting to look like soldiers with their wooden sword drills. Then I watched the 5 squires I'd brought from home sparring in the yard, their wooden swords giving off faint white glows where battle energy leaked out. One of them, Grey Chive, had a seed almost the size of a pigeon egg. He'd be the territory's next mid-rank squire. I stood on the porch looking over all of it, the kills smoking, the guards training, the fields growing. Not bad for a few weeks of work. But Boris was out there, and the clock was ticking. Hart came to me with the reply from Green Lake territory. Baron Austin agreed to trade, and even included a list of Boris's knights. Riverside territory has 2 high-rank squires, Boris himself and his guard captain, a man named Locke, plus 4 mid-rank squires. That's solid strength for a frontier baron. Hart explained that Locke was the reason Green Lake lost last year. He was a fresh breakthrough nobody expected. If Austin had known about him, he'd never have left his castle to fight in the open. The letter also had basic intelligence on Riverside. Over 8,000 people, a castle, 2 small towns, and multiple farms. Compared to my territory, not even 2 months old, I was badly outmatched in a straight fight. But the situation wasn't all bad. Austin's Green Lake territory has been established for over 10 years and sits on the only port in this stretch of the frontier. He got rich off trade, and in the old days he used to bully Boris by squeezing his trade routes. No wonder Boris came for him once he had the strength. Rich and weak is a dangerous combination out here. Now Austin is scared to send his merchants too far from home. He reached out to me because he wants someone to share the pressure. Smart old fox. He's trying to get me to stand between him and Boris. I told Hart to give Grey Chive 10 bottles of magic potion from Perrin's stores. That kid was right on the edge of a breakthrough. 5 days later, the manor's brick walls were finished. The settlements were slowly getting their wooden fences replaced too. Loren had the guards digging trenches around the walls with sharpened stakes at the bottom, a trick I pulled from memories of my past life. Simple but effective. Perrin reported the salt mine was producing 120 pounds of refined salt daily, with over 1,000 pounds already stockpiled. He asked whether we should send our own caravan to Oak City or wait for merchant caravans to come to us. I chose to wait. With the situation uncertain, I needed my squires close to home. On the training field, more guards had awakened their battle energy. And Grey came through. With those potions backing him up, he broke through to mid-rank squire yesterday evening. His energy seed had grown to pigeon egg size. He was out in the yard stabilizing his new level. Then 2 guards dragged in a man they'd caught at the salt mine. He was wearing plain gray clothes with an empty basket on his back, salt grains stuck to the bottom. He started yelling that he was just gathering firewood and happened to pass by. The guards handed me what they found on him: a pouch of our refined salt and a hand-drawn map. On the map, our salt mine and brick kilns were marked with bold crosses. I wasn't surprised. The salt mine was never going to stay secret forever. My territory is brand new with no real borders. Anyone can walk right in and look around. I kept my expression flat. I told them to hand the spy over to Dick for questioning, find out who sent him, how many others came with him, and squeeze out everything he knows. Then I gave the order: double the guards at the salt mine, set up hidden lookout posts, and make sure no spy leaves my territory alive. I walked back to the manor and spread out a map on my desk. Playing defense just means getting hit. I need to make the other side hurt too. Whoever's drawing crosses on their map of my land. We'll see who ends up as fertilizer. Dick spent all night interrogating the spy and came to me the next morning with black circles under his eyes. The man was from Riverside Territory, working under a manager named Colin who handles Boris's dirty work. They'd been watching us from Oak City for half a month before sending people to follow the road to the salt mine. 3 groups came in total: 1 watching the salt mine, 1 watching the brick kilns, and 1 tracking our troop movements. The map with the crosses was preparation for arson, burn down the kilns and salt operation, and my whole development grinds to a halt. They had a meeting point at an abandoned hunter's shack 3 miles east of the gravel flats, where they left signals for each other every 2 days. I rewarded Dick with 50 silver coins and sent him to rest. Then I called Loren in and told him to stake out the shack. When the next spy shows up to leave a message, follow the chain and grab the contact person too. Over the next couple days, things ran smoothly. All 5 settlements had finished planting. The serfs were weeding, watering, and tending young crops. Every settlement now had brick walls with spiked trenches. The kilns kept burning day and night. I wanted to rebuild the interior of the manor with proper storehouses. The salt operation was pumping out over 100 pounds of refined salt daily. I also had serfs building a simple dock on the Clearwater River. Moving salt and grain by water would save 30% on transport. On the 3rd morning, a merchant caravan of 20-some wagons rolled into the territory. The leader was Marco, a sharp-eyed, thin man in his 40s from the Gray Bear Trading Company based in Oak City. This company belongs to Marquis Cologne, my patron. The arrangement is standard for pioneer lords. You buy supplies from your patron's merchants first, sell your resources through them, as long as the prices are fair. Marco took one look at my brick walls, trenches, and drilling guards while pretending not to notice. Then he got straight to the point: the salt mine. He said Oak City already knew about it. News travels fast in the frontier. The Gray Bear Company wanted to buy our refined salt and supply us with grain, tools, and cloth at good prices. We negotiated for half a day. Our salt isn't the cheap, coarse stuff commoners eat. It's rock salt, refined to pure white crystal. Noble grade. We settled on 2 silver coins per pound. I had 1,500 pounds stockpiled from the past 10-plus days. Sold it all for 30 gold dragons. Not a fortune, but it was steady income. I calculated that if I scaled up to 300 pounds a day, the salt mine alone could bring in 2,000 gold dragons a year. I was lucky to find this mine. Without it, development would have crawled. And no, I didn't try any of those classic tricks transmigrators usually pull: making paper, brewing fancy liquor, inventing glass. I have no idea how to do any of that. Besides, this world has mages who figured that stuff out ages ago during their experiments. The products here aren't primitive at all. With money flowing again, I restocked properly: supplies, metal, magic potions, spending a few hundred gold dragons. Marco took the payment with a smile, then casually dropped some intelligence. Boris has been recruiting heavily, and there's talk he wants to build his own port. I knew what that really meant. He wanted to take Green Lake's port. Marco also mentioned that Boris had people in Oak City asking about my territory. I thanked him for the heads up. After the caravan left, I told Perrin to expand salt production immediately. The old administrator's eyes lit up. With a steady income stream, we could buy another batch of serfs from Oak City and clear 5,000 more acres before winter. After selling the salt, things quieted down. The territory was running itself. Perrin managed the accounts. The serfs worked their fields, the guards trained. Dick behaved after his whipping. I was starting to feel useless sitting around the manor all day. Lorenz suggested we go explore the parts of the territory we'd only glanced at before. Good idea. I also needed to set up proper patrol routes so the guards could learn the land instead of just drilling in the yard. I picked 15 sharp guards plus Gray, 18 of us total, loaded up with food and water, and rode out at dawn. We headed north first. The terrain got rougher the farther we went from the farms. No roads out here, just waist-high grass, scattered rocks, and the occasional rabbit bolting from a bush. After 2 hours, we hit a mixed forest of oak and pine, too dark to enter carelessly. We skirted the edge northwest and spotted some goblins in the brush, gray-green shapes that ducked back into hiding when they saw us. Loren shrugged them off. Annoying but harmless in small numbers. An hour later, we climbed high enough to see the ridge marking Thicket Ridge territory to the north. That lord arrived 3 months before me, but we still hadn't met. No smoke, no signs of life on the ridge. Beyond that, unclaimed wilderness. Loren said orc tribes roam up there. Every pioneer territory is the same. The only direction to expand is north, and you have to fight for it. On the way back, we passed through the lowland swamp I'd scouted before. My territory is huge, but without enough people, it's just empty space. Once things stabilize, I'll send serfs out to build farms and claim the ground. We shot about 10 wild ducks from horseback for dinner. The next day, we went west along the Clearwater River upstream. 2 hours in, Loren spotted a shallow crossing, slow current, pebble bottom, easy to wade through. On the far bank, a worn path led through the grass straight to the water's edge. Someone had been using this crossing regularly. Riverside territory. Boris's people had been coming to my side of the river. I stared at that trail for a long time, then told Loren to mark it on the map. Once the patrol teams are running, this spot gets watched constantly. Another day, we headed southwest under gray skies with light rain. After 10-some miles, the land opened up, and we could see mist rising from the swamp that borders Green Lake territory. Loren pointed past it. Baron Austin's port was on the other side. We turned east along the swamp's edge and came to a patch of scrubby woods on slightly higher ground. Wild grapevines everywhere, tangled over dead trees, trailing across the dirt, still carrying shriveled grapes nobody had ever picked. I dismounted to stretch my legs and poked around. I pushed aside a curtain of low-hanging vines, and something moved under a broad grape leaf. I looked closer. A fat little bug, purple-red, about the size of my thumb. Its back had dark markings shaped like tiny clusters of grapes. It flinched from the sudden light and tried to hide. My heart jumped, but my hand stayed steady. I picked it up gently. It squirmed and made a soft humming noise, then gave up and stared at me with 2 tiny black eyes, its mouth working like it was chewing on nothing. Loren came up behind me, saw what I was holding, and his eyes went wide. He whispered it. "Spirit bug?" I nodded. I pulled a small piece of jade from my coat and held it near the bug's mouth. The little thing perked right up, grabbed the jade with its legs, and started crunching away. While it was busy eating, I pricked my finger and dropped blood onto its back. The blood sank in instantly. The bug paused, looked up at me, then went back to eating. But I could feel it now, a faint sense of its mood, its hunger, its contentment. The contract was formed. It was a grape spirit bug. Agricultural type, not magic herb. I wasn't disappointed. A free spirit bug is a free spirit bug. Once it finished the jade, I found the companion spirit grass nearby. A dark-colored vine shoot with a finger-length bud, deeper in color than the surrounding grapevines. I dug it out carefully with my knife, keeping the roots and soil intact, wrapped it in wet cloth, and handed it to Loren. He held it like it was made of glass. The bug crawled up my hand, curled into a ball in my palm, and went still. I placed it in a jade box and tucked it inside my coat. Back at the manor, I had Perrin prepare the reserved farmland for planting the new spirit grass. We headed south one day and reached the border of Cold Pine Ridge. Loren told me the lord there is Clark Fur, an old-time baron whose castle got overrun by orcs 3 years ago. He survived, but never fully recovered. The orcs come down from the far north every year before winter to raid and plunder, much worse than goblins or gnolls. Marquis Mammon in Oak City organizes the frontier lords to fight the main orc army each year, but scattered groups still slip through. Cold Pine Ridge just happened to be in their path. I asked if we get called up for orc duty. Loren said frontline lords usually get left alone. The marquee recruits from the rear territories. Unless the orc force is unusually large that year. Good to know. We didn't find any more spirit bugs that day, just some scraggly wild apple trees with shriveled fruit. A few gnolls wandered in the distance but didn't bother us, and I didn't bother chasing them. The last day we went east toward the Blackstone Mountains. The ground turned rocky and barren, grass thinning out to almost nothing. Blackstone territory belongs to Baron Horson, who's been mining obsidian there for over 10 years. No conflict with us. A dry riverbed marks the border between our lands. After days of riding, I finally had the full picture of my neighborhood mapped out. North, unclaimed wilderness with orcs, my future expansion route. Northwest, Thicket Ridge, a new lord behind a mountain ridge. West, Riverside Territory and Boris, separated by the Clearwater River with 3 shallow crossings I need to guard hard. Southwest, Green Lake, my ally, separated by swamp. South, Cold Pine Ridge, half-wrecked, not a threat. East, Blackstone, peaceful, separated by a dry riverbed. Northeast, another new lord behind some low hills. 6 neighbors. Boris is the dangerous one, sitting right across my river. Green Lake is friendly on the surface. Cold Pine Ridge can barely stand. Blackstone minds its own business. The 2 new lords haven't found their footing yet. I set up a rotation for the guards. 2 teams, 1 patrolling and clearing monsters, 1 defending the manor. They switch off regularly. The 15 veterans who came on the scouting trips already know the routes by heart. When I got back to the manor, Perrin was waiting with a smile. The first batch of magic herbs was ready to harvest. The 5 acres of dandelion field were covered in bright yellow flowers. Serfs carefully picked only the blooms that were fully open. You don't harvest everything at once. The plants stay alive and keep producing flowers, leaves, and roots through all 4 seasons. The rose field next to it was different. Knee-high bushes with scattered deep red flowers, thick petals that smell bitter and sharp. The serfs picked the ripe petals gently into cloth-lined baskets. Perrin showed me the first morning's harvest. The potion maker apprentice checked the quality and said it was good enough to start brewing. He estimated the dandelion field alone could produce about 30 bottles of potion per month. On the market, even the cheapest potion costs 1 gold coin. High quality or elemental ones go for 5 to 10. My dandelion bug produces less volume but higher quality, wind element potions, which are rare. The rose bug makes more, but at ordinary quality. Between the 2, I finally didn't need to spend a fortune buying potions anymore. My own training could continue, and I could supply my knights with their monthly potion allotment as part of their pay. Regular guards don't get potions unless they show enough talent to be promoted to squire. I told the apprentice to keep at it, buy whatever materials he needs, and perfect his craft. I promised him good rewards down the line. Whether I meant it or not, well, that's a question for later. Morning training, sword drills, battle energy cycling, it's become routine. My high-rank squire level is solid now, and the refining pot keeps producing liquid from the monster corpses my patrols bring in daily. My body's so used to the stuff that I feel off if I skip a day. I'd barely sat down for breakfast when Loren burst in. Trouble on the western border. The patrol found tracks at the most hidden river crossing. 20 to 30 people had come over from the other side, armed, claiming to be a merchant caravan. They'd set up camp on my land and weren't leaving. I didn't need to think hard about who sent them. Boris, his manager Colin, the same one who ran the spy operation, was behind this. A man like Boris doesn't do anything without a reason. He sent these people to test me. If I act tough, he'll be more careful next time. If I back down, he knows I'm weak and he can push harder. I told Loren to gather 40 men, half veterans, half new recruits, plus Gray, Hart, and the 4 low-rank squires. I left 40 guards behind to defend the manor in case this was a diversion. Half an hour later, we rode up to the camp. 7 or 8 tents, horses tied to trees, smoke rising from a cooking fire. The armed men at the edge panicked when they saw us coming. Some ran for the tents. Others grabbed their weapons and backed up. I stopped 50 paces out and waited. A short, middle-aged man with a thin mustache came out of a tent, sword at his hip. His smile froze for a second when he saw my forces, then he plastered it back on and came forward, bowing low. He introduced himself as Colin, a trading manager from Riverside Territory. Said they'd been chasing a wild boar, accidentally crossed the river, and it got dark, so they camped for the night. Chasing a boar. 30 armed men, taking the most hidden crossing, camping overnight in another lord's territory. Sure. I scanned the camp while he talked. The men looked casual, but their positioning covered all directions. Several had sharp eyes and quality weapons, trained fighters, not merchants. I counted at least 3 or 4 low-rank squires among them, and Colin himself was probably mid-rank. Boris wouldn't waste a high-rank asset on a scouting mission. These were expendable pawns. If they all died here, Boris wouldn't lose sleep. I needed to respond firmly without revealing too much about my own strength. That was the tricky part. I looked at Colin and said his merchant caravan was pretty interesting, crossing at the most hidden spot, camping in my territory, still here the next day. He smiled and offered to pack up and leave right away. Started turning to go. I stopped him. Did you forget to bow to me? His face changed. By duchy law, commoners must show respect to nobles. Out here in the frontier, people don't bother. You might be enemies tomorrow. But I grabbed onto that technicality and wouldn't let go. His excuse for being here was just as flimsy, so fair is fair. I told Loren to go slap him twice. Loren stepped forward. Every mercenary behind Colin drew their swords, ready to fight. My men raised their weapons too. The air went tight. I gave Loren a look. He walked up and cracked Colin across the face, left cheek, right cheek. Hard enough to make his eyes spin and his mouth bleed. Colin took it. He swallowed his rage because he had a mission, and right now his mission was figuring out whether I was someone to be afraid of. Starting a fight here wouldn't serve his purpose. I ordered them off my land. Told my men if they don't comply, kill the leader first. I couldn't actually slaughter the whole group. If I got personally involved, my true strength might get exposed. If even one person escaped, Boris would know exactly what he was dealing with. Better to send them home humiliated but alive. On the ride back, Gray asked why I let them go. I told him, kill them, and you can't guarantee nobody escapes. One survivor hiding in the grass, and by nightfall Boris knows our full capabilities. Next time, he won't send 20 mercenaries. He'll send 200 dressed as bandits. Loren said what we all knew. This was just a bandage, not a cure. The probing wouldn't stop. I nodded but didn't answer. Today I held my ground, but not killing them already told Boris something. Either I'm confident enough that I don't need to, or I'm not strong enough to finish the job cleanly. Either way, he learned something. What I need most right now is time, and I'm running out of it. I have to find a way to deal with the Boris problem before he decides to stop testing and start attacking. Back at the manor, I called Loren, Gray, and Hart into my room and shut the door. I laid it out straight. Boris sent people to test us today, and I chased them off. But this was only round 1. There'd be a second and a third. Gray asked why Boris was targeting us instead of Thicket Ridge, the other new lord nearby. Hart answered before I could, the salt mine. 2,000 gold coins a year. Thicket Ridge has nothing. Attack them, and you'd have to spend money just to keep the place running. Green Lake has the port, but Austin is hiding behind his castle walls, and a siege would be too costly. We're the perfect target. New, not established yet, sitting on a gold mine. I told them the truth I learned in my past life. It's no crime to be innocent, but it's a death sentence to hold treasure you can't protect. And giving Boris the salt mine wouldn't fix anything. Today he wants salt. Tomorrow he wants spirit bugs. The day after he wants the whole territory. So I made my decision. I'd strike first. Tonight. Disguised as bandits. I couldn't fight Boris head-on. His territory is stronger than mine. And he wouldn't openly attack me during the protection year either. So we'd play the same game. Hit him where it hurts, then disappear. But first I had to show them something. I swung my sword at the table corner, battle energy surging. High-rank squire power, unmistakable. All 3 of them went wide-eyed. They'd had no idea. An 18-year-old high-rank squire. In their minds, that meant a guaranteed future as a full knight. Their confidence shot through the roof. I explained the plan. We crossed the river tonight, disguised, and raid one of Boris's farming settlements. I'd use my high-rank strength openly during the attack, but nobody could know it was me. If word got around that an 18-year-old high-rank squire was sitting in a brand-new territory, every ambitious lord in the frontier would band together to crush me before I got any stronger. This way, Boris sees that the bandits near his land have a high-rank fighter. It puts pressure on him without provoking an all-out war against me specifically. I picked the team. Loren and Gray come with me. Two tight-lipped, ruthless low-rank squires from the roster. 5 people total, small, fast, hard to track. Hart stays behind to guard the manor with the alchemy crossbows. We leave after dark, back before dawn. They all agreed. What I didn't know was that across the river, Boris was having the exact same meeting at the exact same time. In his castle, his guard Captain Locke, the manager Colin, still nursing swollen cheeks from Lauren's slaps, and 2 mid-rank squires sat around his table. Colin reported that I'd brought 40 men and showed a hard attitude. He couldn't read my full strength since nobody actually fought. Boris figured it out the same way I would have. The fact that I didn't kill his men meant I was confident, but not overwhelmingly strong. If I had the power to wipe them out cleanly, I would have. So my forces were limited. But the salt mine was confirmed. 2,000 gold coins a year, worth every bit of effort. Boris made his call. Tonight, disguised as bandits. He'd go personally with his high-rank Captain Locke. They'd circle north to avoid the river crossings, sneak into my territory, and burn 2 of my farming settlements. A welcome gift for the new neighbor. If I sent men to chase them, he'd get a look at what my people could do. If I didn't chase, he'd know I was too weak to respond, and he'd just keep coming back to pick me apart piece by piece. 2 lords, same night, same plan, both heading toward each other's land dressed as bandits. That night, no moon, perfect darkness. I took Loren, Gray, and 2 tight-lipped squires out the back gate. We wore old leather armor, wrapped our faces in black cloth, and carried unmarked weapons from the bottom of the armory. No identifying marks on anything. I gave one rule: no talking during the attack. If someone escapes, don't chase. Hit fast, get out, be home before sunrise. We moved west toward the river crossing, running battle energy to see through the dark. What I didn't know was that Boris was leaving his castle at the same time, heading east toward my territory. 2 groups of fake bandits, crossing paths in the night without knowing it. We had the map Baron Austin gave us, which made navigating riverside territory easy. 2 miles past the river, we spotted Firelight, a small outpost with a watchtower, a few tents, soldiers drinking around a campfire. I signaled to go around it. An hour later, we reached one of Boris's farming villages. I watched from the grass. 2 guards on the watchtower, looking the wrong way. I gave the signal. Lauren's arrows punched through both their throats before they could react. I vaulted over the 2-meter wall, battle energy surging, and threw open the gate. A low-rank squire charged at me with his weapon up. One swing of my sword sent him flying. He didn't get back up. The other soldiers saw what happened, turned white, and ran. Loren and Gray torched the granary. Dry straw caught instantly, flames lighting up half the sky. The serfs dropped to their knees, paralyzed with fear. I let the fleeing soldiers go, on purpose. I wanted them alive to report what they saw. The whole raid took less than 15 minutes. Before leaving, I planted one thing. A plain sword with nothing on it except a strip of cloth wrapped around the handle. Cloth I'd picked up from my own training yard. A small breadcrumb. Enough to make Boris wonder. We disappeared into the dark. Behind us, alarm bells rang across the village. We were moving fast through a patch of scrubby woods on the way home when Gray stopped and pointed east, toward my own territory. Fire. Not a small one. A wide glow on the horizon, right where Black Rye Village should be. My stomach dropped. Boris. The same night. The same plan. Nobody spoke. We broke into a run, crashing through the grass. The closer we got, the clearer the flames became. By the time we crested the last hill, Black Rye Village was burning hard. Tiny figures ran back and forth. Screaming carried on the wind. It was too late to do anything there. I told the others to head straight for the manor. At dawn, I changed out of my disguise and got the damage report from Hart and Perrin. 8 guards dead. The soldiers and manager at Black Rye were killed first, so nobody organized firefighting. Half the serfs scattered into the wilderness. Most would wander back during the day, but we'd need to send search parties. The buildings were almost completely destroyed. I sat back in my chair and looked at the morning light coming through the window. I burned one of his farms and killed a low-rank squire, letting survivors escape to carry the message. He burned my Black Rye village and killed 8 guards. Neither of us gained an advantage. But one thing was clear. Boris is just as ruthless and cunning as I am. He probably came personally. Our 2 groups might have passed within a few miles of each other in the dark, without knowing. I laughed to myself. Life out here just got a lot more interesting. Meanwhile, in Boris's castle, his people were giving him the same kind of report. His northeast farm got hit. Granary burned to nothing. The low-rank squire stationed there was killed with a single sword strike. The surviving soldiers described the attacker's battle energy as powerful, high-rank squire level, no question. Boris's face changed when he heard that. A high-rank squire. He'd gone to burn my settlement and found nobody home because that high-rank fighter was at his place doing the exact same thing. No looting, just arson and a deliberate message. Not bandits, a warning. He figured the high-rank fighter was probably provided by my family, not me personally. That kind of support isn't unheard of among well-connected noble houses. It meant my family valued me highly. His Captain Locke suggested maybe they should switch targets to Thicket Ridge instead. Boris didn't answer. I stood in the ruins of Black Rye Village. Charred wood still smoking, half-collapsed brick walls leaning at ugly angles. Serfs picked through the wreckage, letting out small cheers when they found an unburned sack of grain. Perrin read me the damage report. I told him to double the death pay for the fallen guards and send it back to their families. I wanted everyone to know, die under my command, and your people get taken care of. I ordered bricks from the kills, timber from the northern forest, and workers pulled from the other 4 settlements. Black Rye Village gets rebuilt in 10 days. I also promoted a few capable serfs to replace the dead managers. Told the rest that whoever works hardest gets the next manager position. That lit a fire under them faster than any whip. Back at the manor, I met with Loren, Gray, and Hart. I laid out the new defensive plan. Pull back, tighten up, don't give Boris any openings. Double the watch at the western river crossings. Expand patrol range. If his people show up again, report immediately, but don't chase. No heroics. After the others left, I kept Loren behind and put a box on the table. 30 bottles of rose potion. The first real harvest from the magic herb fields. I told him straight. The territory needs a second high-rank squire who can fight in the open, someone whose strength isn't a secret like mine. He's the most experienced and the most loyal. How long to break through? He thought for a moment. 2 months normally. 1 month with enough potions. 1 month it is. Starting today, he drops all other duties and focuses on training. The potion field's entire output goes to him first. Hart takes over patrol captain. Loren bowed deeply and left with the box. I stood at the window looking west. 1 month. Could Boris give me that much time? The answer came faster than I expected. The very next morning, Perrin knocked on my door with a strange look on his face. Riverside Territories sent people over. They brought grain, condolence grain, and a message. Boris said yesterday's merchant caravan incident was a misunderstanding. Last night, bandits were roaming the area, and both sides suffered. He hoped we could be good neighbors going forward. I almost laughed out loud. The man who burned my village 12 hours ago was now sending me sympathy gifts and talking about friendship. That takes nerve, but I understood exactly what he was doing. He wanted me to relax, to think the pressure was off. Maybe his high-rank fighter, the one who raided my territory, would leave eventually. Maybe I'd get sloppy. Then he'd strike for real. 1 hit, no survivors. I told Perrin to keep the grain and send the messengers away. Tell them I appreciate Baron Boris's kindness, and I'll invite him for drinks when I have time. Boris was playing the long game. So was I? What he didn't know was that while he was spreading word about my salt mine to every neighboring lord, hoping someone else would take a bite first so he could watch from behind, I was pouring every resource into Lorne's breakthrough. I pulled all the knights back into the manor. No more stationing them at individual settlements. Concentrate the force. Let the guards handle monster clearing. Knights don't travel alone anymore. I pretended nothing had happened, just as Boris pretended nothing had happened. 2 men standing at their windows, looking toward each other across the river, both smiling, both sharpening their knives. Loren was in closed-door training. In 1 month, I'd have 2 high-rank squires, myself and him. Boris thinks the high-rank fighter he heard about is some family-appointed bodyguard who might leave someday. He has no idea it's me, and that a second one is about to be born. 1 month. Then we'll see who's the hunter and who's the prey. A week later, Black Rye Village was almost rebuilt. New walls half a foot taller than before, wooden frames going up, serfs thatching roofs. 3 more days, and it would be done. The territory was running smoothly, but I couldn't figure out how to speed up development without more money. The salt mine was already at maximum output with the people I had. Then the trouble started. Gray reported 7 or 8 people in mercenary clothes hanging around the salt mine, poking through the tree line for half a day before disappearing. No one caught. I told him not to send knights after them. Keep them together, just have patrols watch closer. Green Lake Territory sent a messenger with 2 carts of supplies. Condolence gifts, they said. Baron Austin's manager sat down with me for tea and dropped the real reason he came. Boris had been sending people to every neighboring lord, spreading the word about my salt mine, telling everyone it produces thousands of gold coins a year, quality is excellent, but the owner is just a new lord who might not last. So that's why my territory was suddenly crawling with strangers. Boris wasn't going to attack me directly anymore. He was ringing the dinner bell for everyone else. The Green Lake manager offered help if I needed it. I thanked him and sent him off. But I knew Austin wasn't being charitable either. If I asked for help, he'd want a cut of the salt profits. Nobles don't do favors for free. That night, I'd barely laid down when someone came pounding on my door. The salt operation was under attack. By the time I got there, it was over. 7 or 8 attackers had tried to set fires and sabotage equipment. The guards caught them, killed 3, but the rest escaped. We lost 4 guards and over a dozen serfs. Tools were wrecked. The salt operation would need to shut down for repairs. The dead attackers wore plain clothes with covered faces. No way to identify who sent them. Gray asked if we should investigate. I told him not to bother. It could have been any of the neighboring lords. Finding out who doesn't solve the problem. I had the bodies dumped into the pit. After everyone left, I fed them all into the refining pot. With the knights staying closer to the manor lately, my supply of monster corpses had dropped, so this was a needed refill. First time refining human bodies. I figured I'd test the results on my men's soup first before using it myself. I still had my own stash. I ordered the salt mine workers pulled back until things were settled. The next day, Stone Creek Territory showed up. A slick young man with his chin in the air, claiming to be Baron Peter's manager. Peter is the 3rd son of Count Red Maple. Fancy blood, but out here in the frontier that just means he got sent away with a title and not much else. His proposal: let Stone Creek buy into the salt mine. They provide manpower and trade routes, sell the salt to the Duchy Interior, split profits 50-50. 50-50. For my mine, my salt, my workers. That's not a business deal, that's robbery. I smiled and asked how much support the 3rd son of a count with that many heirs actually got from Daddy. Enough for an exploration title and not much more, clearly, since he was here begging at my table. The manager turned red and left without another word. Before I could catch my breath, 2 more delegations arrived. Thicket Ridge and Cold Pine Ridge, both wanting a piece of the salt mine. The Cold Pine messenger actually lectured me about being generous with neighbors and building good relationships for everyone's benefit. That one made me laugh. Then in the afternoon, 3 more showed up: Riverside, Green Lake, and Blackstone. Every single lord I share a border with, not one missing. What a lovely bunch of caring neighbors. I smiled through every meeting, promised nothing, and made mental notes. Boris's plan had worked perfectly. He scattered blood in the water, and now every shark in the area was circling. I silently promised myself that one day I'd repay all this neighborly warmth. With interest. From the bottom of my heart. 3 days after the salt mine shut down, the harassment got worse. Gray found one of my woodcutting serfs with his throat cut in the eastern forest. A note pinned to the body, sharing the salt mine or not. That same night, someone shot fire arrows into Cattle Village, burning 2 empty cabins. The tracks led northeast, towards Stone Creek Territory. Gray was furious, wanted to hit back. I told him to stay calm. I'd pulled everyone out of the salt mine on purpose. Let them think I was scared. See, Boris had played this perfectly. He spread the word about my salt mine, then sat back while my territory got raided. Nobody heard a thing about me hitting his farm that night. He buried the story. But everyone heard about bandits burning my Black Rye village. So now every neighbor thought I was a soft target who just hides behind his manor walls. Fine. I play the part. Act weak, stay quiet, and wait for the first idiot to overcommit. That idiot turned out to be Baron Peter of Stone Creek, the Count's spoiled 3rd son. While the neighbors circled, I went to check on Loren. He'd been in closed training for almost 10 days. He said he needed a couple more weeks. I pulled 3 bottles of concentrated liquid from my coat. my own special blend mixed to look like high-grade potions, and told him they were a gift from Marquis Cologne. Drink half a bottle at a time. I wanted him to break through in 3 days. Meanwhile, Stone Creek got bolder by the day. First scouts, then small raiding parties. When I still didn't react, Peter and his men had a good laugh. Called me a coward baron who got lucky, said my knights could barely protect my own backside. Then one of his men suggested the big move. Just take the salt mine. It's shut down, nobody's there, walk right in and start producing. If that coward doesn't dare fight, the mine is ours. Peter loved it. He sent his slick manager with 30-plus guards and nearly 500 serfs. They marched into my salt mine like they owned the place. Set up cooking pots, lit fires, started boiling salt on day one. Even began building permanent housing. My patrol watched from a distance and reported back. I was sparring with Loren when the news came. He'd broken through to high-rank squire. I was helping him get used to his new power. They took it, I asked. Gray nodded. 30-some soldiers, 500 serfs. I was quiet for a moment. Then I laughed. Time to close the net. With Lauren's breakthrough, Riverbend territory now had 2 high-rank squires. In this stretch of the frontier, that put us near the top. The balance had shifted. 3 nights after Lauren's breakthrough, I gathered every knight and most of the guards. Masks on, armor on. We crept to the salt mine under moonlight. The place was wide open. 33 guards, most asleep in makeshift shelters. For sentries nodding off around a campfire. I gave the order. We rushed in. The 4 sentries died before they knew what happened. Throats cut clean. The rest stumbled out of their beds into chaos. Then I spotted someone unexpected. A middle-aged man whose battle energy flared bright as he cut down one of my armored soldiers with a single strike. A high-rank squire. I'd expected mid-rank fighters at best. This was a big fish. I called Loren over. 2 against 1, as justice demands. My raw strength was absurd even for a high rank, and I pressed the man hard. My weakness was combat experience, but Loren covered that gap. Together we had him cornered fast. He tried to run, couldn't. Tried to trade his life for one of ours. Went all out in a desperate attack. I hit him with everything I had and broke him. We finished him off, though Loren caught a wound from the man's final burst. After that, we swept through the camp. 2 high-rank squires against common soldiers is like cutting vegetables. The screaming didn't last long. When it was over, the ground was covered in bodies. Loren stood in the middle, blood dripping from his blade. 5 prisoners. 1 wounded mid-rank squire, 1 low-rank, 3 soldiers. I didn't bother offering them a chance to switch sides. In this world, nobles don't accept surrendered knights. It's an unspoken rule. If knights could surrender and keep their lives and property, nobody would ever fight to the death for their lord. The system only works if betrayal has no safe exit. I ordered Dick to extract whatever information they had, then had the serfs rounded up. The ones who ran would be tracked down. Walking back in the pre-dawn light, I felt good. 1 enemy high-rank squire dead, their salt mine operation destroyed, 500 serfs captured, and Peter of Stone Creek just lost a major piece off his board. He wanted my salt mine. He paid for it with blood. By dawn the battlefield was cleaned up. 31 Stone Creek soldiers dead, including 1 high-rank squire, 1 mid-rank, and 4 low-rank. 523 serfs captured, sitting in the dirt shaking with fear. We hauled back swords, armor, grain, and tools by the cartload. The interrogation results came in quick. The high-rank squire we killed was Peter's personal guard captain, his only high-rank fighter. Peter had sent him to hold the salt mine because other lords kept sniffing around. That was a gift to me. Stone Creek still had 3 mid-rank squires and 7 or 8 low-rank ones back home, plus about 130 soldiers. Peter came to the frontier with over 10,000 gold dragons from his father Count Red Maple, but half was already spent on building his castle and buying people. The reason he dared grab my mine was simple. Everyone thought I was a pushover. The story about bandits burning my village spread everywhere, and nobody heard about me hitting Boris back. Peter figured he'd grab the mine before anyone else, and with a Count's name behind him, who'd stop him. He was wrong. I looked at the captured serfs. Gray worried they wouldn't be loyal since some had family back in Stone Creek. I smiled and told him not to worry. Their families would be joining them soon enough. I had the serfs report on each other, pulling out troublemakers for brick duty. Then I gave the order everyone was waiting for. Load up. We're raiding Stone Creek. Move fast, no rest, no waiting. Hit them before they even know what happened at the salt mine. By midday, the survivor I'd let escape reached Peter's manor. He dropped his fork when he heard. His high-rank guard captain was dead, ambushed by two high-rank squires working together. Peter couldn't believe it. Where did River Bend get two high-rank fighters? While he was panicking, I was already on the road with 40 masked riders. I'd had proper disguises made this time. Cloth hoods, no markings. This side job was going to become regular work, so we needed to look the part. Loren rode at the front playing the bandit chief while I dressed like a common thug and blended into the group. We hit one of Stone Creek's farming villages. Swept in fast, cut down the few guards, rounded up the serfs. Half an hour, in and out. Grain, livestock, tools, everything that could move, we took. 300 serfs tied together and marched south toward my territory. When Stone Creek's reinforcements arrived, they found nothing but empty buildings and boot prints. Peter heard the news while sitting in his study trying to figure out his next move. He nearly exploded. His people chased after us, but lost more soldiers, and even the bodies got carried off. He screamed that he'd never seen such a shameless noble in his life. I'd take that as a compliment. Betrayal, bullying the weak, kicking people when they're down, taking a mile when given an inch, biting the hand that feeds you. These are my specialties. I perfected them in my previous life. Peter pulled everyone back behind his manor walls. His place has alchemy crossbows and fortified defenses. Even a high-rank squire can't break him easily. He wasn't worried about his spirit bugs either. In this world, nobody destroys spirit grass unless it's a fight to the death. The best way to get someone's spirit bugs is to capture important people and force the Lord to hand them over, or kill the Lord directly and take control. Peter wrote two things: a letter to his father begging for reinforcements, and a peace letter to me with gifts, full of sweet talk about brotherhood and misunderstandings. I read his letter and laughed. The kid even tried to draw me a pretty picture of future cooperation. I told his messenger to relay my response. As long as Peter keeps his promises, we're like brothers. The moment the messenger left, I called Loren and Hart together. Get a good night's sleep. Tomorrow we go again. The next morning we rode out again. Same crew, same masks. But when Gray scouted ahead, everything was empty. Peter had pulled all his people back behind his manor walls overnight. The farming villages were abandoned, houses standing, half the grain left behind, pigs squealing in their pens with nobody feeding them. So yesterday's peace letter and my friendly performance were wasted. The Count's son wasn't as stupid as I'd hoped. No people to grab? Fine. We'll burn it. I gave the word. My men threw torches into the wooden buildings. Dry timber caught fast, and within minutes the flames were roaring. We moved to the next village, then the next. 3 farming settlements reduced to ashes by noon, black smoke visible from miles away. Peter sat in his fortified manor the whole time and didn't send a single person out. His messenger found me in the afternoon while I was eating an apple, half my face still covered. The man delivered Peter's threat. Count Red Maple's reinforcements were on the way, and I'd better stop if I knew what was good for me. I laughed and told him he had the wrong person. We're bandits. Never heard of any baron. The messenger was stunned by the sheer audacity. He tried again, addressing me as Bandit Lord this time. I stood up, looked down at him, and laid it out plain. How long does it take reinforcements to reach the frontier from the duchy's heartland? 1 month. 2. 4. By the time soldiers arrive, what territory will be left to save? Then I switched to a friendly tone. I'd heard that the Baron of River Bend recently lost 2 spirit bugs. It seems Peter found them. If he'd be kind enough to return them, this whole misunderstanding could end. If not, he can stay locked in his manor and wait for Daddy's help. The messenger left on wobbly legs. My men asked if I was worried about Count Red Maple getting involved. I told them there's nothing to worry about. I haven't seized Peter's territory or killed any nobles. On paper, Stone Creek was hit by bandits. Nothing to do with River Bend. Every frontier lord has someone backing them. Boris has Count Purple Thistle. I have Marquis Cologne. As long as I succeed out here, the Marquis benefits, and nobody's going to side against a winner. That night, I wrote 2 letters. One to Viscount Evan updating him on my progress. One to Lady Irina. The better I do out here, the more the Marigold family will value me. And a few whispered words from the lady in Evan's ear never hurt. 3 months without a woman's company. You know how I've been managing? the same way every man does. But now that the territory had 2 high-rank squires and things were stabilizing, certain needs were becoming impossible to ignore. The local options were uninspiring. Boris, you have yet another reason to die. I skipped 2 days to avoid establishing a predictable pattern, then went back to Stone Creek. This time I had the men pull up crops and harvest whatever magic herbs were left in the fields. Figured Peter wouldn't mind. Gray reported something interesting. The magic herb fields and spirit grass had already been moved before we arrived. And some of the farm damage wasn't ours. Someone else was raiding Stone Creek under cover of our attacks. I had to laugh. What wonderful, caring neighbors we all are. None of them wanted to openly cross Count Red Maple, but with me out front taking the blame, they were happy to sneak in and take their share. The most likely culprit was old Baron Horson of Blackstone. His territory borders Stone Creek to the south, and Peter's land blocks his northern expansion. But it could be anyone. I was probably getting blamed for everything, but I didn't care. Peter was losing his mind in his manner, screaming about how I'd just been there yesterday and was back again today. His people pointed out that other lords were probably raiding too, now that word had spread about his high-rank squire being dead. Peter knew, but his hatred was focused entirely on me. His reinforcements? The messenger probably hadn't even left the frontier yet. 2 months minimum before any soldiers from Count Red Maple could arrive. Finally, Peter sent another offer. No spirit bugs, absolutely not. But he'd give me 1,000 serfs if I swore on my family name to stop raiding Stone Creek. I considered it. 1,000 serfs was a good haul. But I hadn't answered yet. The next morning, Stone Creek's messenger showed up again. The same guy whose legs nearly gave out last time. He could barely look me in the eye. Peter's offer, 1,000 serfs in exchange for my family's sworn guarantee to leave Stone Creek alone. I put down my bread and stared at the man. 1,000? Was Peter trying to tip a beggar? Did I look like a beggar to him? I told the messenger my terms. 2,000 serfs. 50,000 pounds of grain. 300 sets of farming tools. Not one item less. The messenger nearly choked. I reminded him that Peter had 4,000 or 5,000 serfs crammed inside his manor. Giving me 2,000 wouldn't kill him. If he agrees, I'll guarantee peace on my family's name. If he doesn't, those bandits plaguing his territory have nothing to do with me. He should take it up with his father. I sent the messenger off and told him I wanted an answer by tomorrow. Peter smashed his cup when he heard, screamed about robbery, then agreed to everything. He figured he just needed to buy a few months until Count Red Maple's soldiers arrive. Then he'd make me pay it all back with interest. The messenger returned the next day, white-faced, and confirmed, all terms accepted. I grinned and told him Peter was a true nobleman, generous and decisive. I called him Big Brother and told the messenger to let Peter know that from now on, his problems were my problems. He should come to me anytime he needed help. The deliveries started immediately. 500 serfs on the first day, marched to the border by Stone Creek guards like a flock of sheep. I rode out personally to receive them. Over the next 5 days, all 2,000 arrived in 4 batches, along with the grain and tools. Perrin worked himself half to death settling everyone. The troublemakers, about 200, got sent to make bricks. The rest were split among the existing settlements and 4 new smaller ones. The irrigation ditches I'd been putting off finally had enough hands. The salt mine reopened too. Smoke was pouring from the chimneys again, dozens of pots boiling brine around the clock. Production hit 300 pounds a day and would climb higher with more workers. I told Perrin to push output hard. I needed cash now, not careful long-term planning. Of course, a deal this big between 2 territories couldn't stay quiet. Every neighboring lord heard about it. Boris was the most bothered. His plan had been perfect: spread news about my salt mine, hide the fact that I'd hit him back, let the other lords weaken me, then swoop in for the kill. He never expected me to just abandon the mine and let Peter walk right in. And he definitely didn't expect Peter's high-rank squire to end up dead. How did Riverbend kill a high-rank fighter? That question was eating at Boris. Tricks and ambushes can't easily bring down someone at that level. He started thinking dark thoughts, wondering if I had more strength than the intelligence suggested. But he couldn't make it fit. If I really had 2 high-rank squires, why did I back down from him at the river crossing? It never crossed his mind that I was the second high-rank. His intelligence said I'd just reached mid-rank this year. An 18-year-old high-rank squire was too unlikely to consider. His wife Iris, the daughter of Count Purple Thistle, noticed his mood. She was beautiful, porcelain skin, golden hair, a figure that commanded attention, and sharp enough to match. Boris considered himself lucky to have married her, though apparently there were some regrets attached to that luck. She listened to his concerns and suggested a simple solution. Ask Peter directly what happened. If Peter refuses to answer, then Boris's worst fears are probably correct. Boris agreed. It cost nothing to ask. Meanwhile, I sat in my growing territory, watching carts of grain roll into storehouses and new serfs pour into the fields. 2,000 extra workers, free food, free tools. Peter thought he was buying time. What he'd actually done was fuel my expansion while his own territory rotted behind castle walls, waiting for rescue that was months away. Boris sent his manager Colin to Stone Creek to fish for information. He wanted to know how Peter's high-rank squire died. But Peter wasn't stupid enough to hand that over for free. He'd already figured out that Boris was the one who spread the salt mine news and got him used as a pawn. Colin got nothing. Peter politely told him to leave and privately hoped Boris would pick a fight with me so they'd both get hurt. When Colin reported back empty-handed, Boris connected the dots. His wife Iris had told him, if Peter won't talk, assume the worst. 2 high-rank squires in River Bend. Boris finally accepted it as fact. But then his thinking shifted in an interesting direction. He couldn't expand anymore. My territory and Thicket Ridge had boxed him in. His development was stalling. And sitting on the front line near Orc country without growing stronger was a death sentence long-term. Then it hit him. River Bend has high-rank fighters, but Stone Creek doesn't. Not anymore. Peter just gave away 2,000 serfs and had his territory stripped bare. All those supplies being carted to my land were passing through open country. Boris could smell blood. If I could play bandit, so could he. And Peter was now the weakest piece on the board. Meanwhile, my territory was booming. Nearly 3,000 new serfs put to work immediately. New settlements, expanded farms, the salt mine back online pumping 300 pounds a day. Perrin was running himself ragged managing it all. Even better news. A serf found a wild corn spirit bug while he was out working. I contracted it on the spot and rewarded the finder with free citizen status and a gold dragon. Word spread instantly. Now every serf was keeping their eyes peeled while they worked, hoping to strike it rich. 2 serfs were even arguing about it. Apparently, the lucky finder discovered the bug while squatting behind a bush to relieve himself. The territory now had close to 6,000 people, over 130 guards, more than 10 low-rank squires thanks to the daily meat soup enhancement, over 10,000 acres of farmland, and 7 spirit bugs, 5 agricultural, and 2 magic herb types. The herb bugs were just barely enough to support 2 high-rank squires' training. Advancing further or adding a 3rd high rank was out of the question without more herb bugs. I also recruited 50 new guards from the fresh serfs. Loren said they had decent potential and would be useful after a couple months of training. Boris's scouts were spotted near my borders, heading into the northern wilderness. I told Loren not to spook them, just watch. Boris was planning something, and I wanted to know what before I reacted. After a couple quiet days, Peter started cautiously sending serfs back out of his manor to work. No more bandits showing up, so he relaxed a little. That's when Loren asked me what was next. I smiled. Did he think I was actually done with Stone Creek just because I took their payment? Loren reminded me we'd signed a guarantee on the family name. I looked at him. Guarantee? What guarantee? Did we receive any goods from Stone Creek? I don't remember seeing anything delivered. Do you? Loren grinned. No, sir. Not a thing. Tomorrow we ride again. Masks on. Peter thought 2,000 serfs bought him peace. How naive. Who actually believes a nobleman's written promise? This kid was so innocent, it almost made me feel bad about robbing him again. Almost. Next morning, masks on, same routine. Loren leading, me hiding in the crowd with my guys. What I didn't know was that Boris had the exact same idea on the exact same day. His guard Captain Locke leading, Boris himself hiding in the crowd in old leather armor with his face wrapped. We hit a Stone Creek farm first, already picked clean from last time, but I was there to destroy, not loot. Lauren's men torched the buildings. Black smoke was just starting to rise when we heard hoofbeats. Another group of bandits. 50-something riders, heading our way. Both groups stopped a few hundred paces apart. Loren gripped his sword and asked if we were fighting. I stared at the other group. The leader was a big man on horseback, and behind him, one figure looked familiar. The build, the posture. Boris. and I'm sure he recognized our side too. Both groups huddled up to discuss. Then Loren rode forward a few steps. Their leader did the same. 50 paces apart, voices disguised. "What crew are you with?" Loren asked. "Just passing through. Looking to grab something," the other man said. "Same here," Loren replied. They looked at each other for a long moment. "Want to do something big?" the other man asked. "Too much for one group alone." Loren paused 2 seconds. "Together, nearly 100 men. 4 high-rank squires between us. One target, Peter's manor." Peter was eating lunch when the alarm went up. A guard came tumbling and screaming about a massive bandit force charging the walls. Peter ran to the ramparts and saw a black wave of riders pouring toward him, 2 masked leaders at the front. He screamed for his archers. The enchanted crossbows hummed and dropped a few of our men, but there were too many of us. 4 high-rank fighters hit the walls simultaneously. We vaulted over, smashed the watchtowers, and cut down the crossbow operators before they could aim. Locke kicked the main gate open, and the rest poured in. The whole thing took less than a minute. Peter was dragged out by Loren, shaking so badly he could barely speak. He tried the noble card. "Do you know who I am? I'm Count Red Maple's son," and got a fist in the face for it. I shook my head at Loren. "Don't kill him yet." Both groups swept through the manor, filling carts with grain, tools, gold, silver. I took Loren to find the spirit bug room, but Boris's man Colin got there first. He'd visited this manor before and knew the layout. His men were already guarding the door. "We got here first. Walk away," they said. Loren sneered. "Who made that rule?" I glimpsed through the doorway. 9 jade boxes, neatly arranged on shelves. Both groups squared off, hands on swords. The tension was thick enough to cut. I assessed the situation from the back of the crowd. Their leader was Locke, high rank. Boris was in there somewhere too, disguised. If we fought, the outcome was uncertain, and neither side could afford losses. Both groups pulled back into huddles again. My argument was simple. Peter was our prisoner. Spirit bugs are bound by contract. They're useless without the owner releasing the bond or dying. They had the room, but we had Peter. Neither side could get full value without the other. After some back and forth, both leaders met again. "Split it even," their man offered. "Deal," Loren said. 9 spirit bugs total, 3 magic herb types, 6 agricultural. 2 were damaged from earlier raids by unknown parties. We divided the good ones evenly, 3 each, 1 magic herb bug per side. The leftover damaged bugs went 1 to each side. I chose the damaged herb bug since even a weakened one had value. Boris's side took a good agricultural bug and a damaged one, which was fair since nobody knew how long the damaged herb bug would survive. Then they brought Peter forward. Locke and Loren tag-teamed the persuasion. Locke threatened torture. Loren helpfully described what chilly water felt like on raw skin. Peter, terrified and broken, asked what it would take to save his life. They told him, "Release the spirit bug contracts, and we have no reason to kill you. You're a count's son. Nobody wants to anger Red Maple over nothing. Without the bugs, you're worthless to us." Peter actually believed it. He released all the contracts. The moment the last bond was severed, Locke ran him through with his sword. Then Locke stared at Loren until he stepped forward and put a blade in Peter too, making sure both sides had blood on their hands. I watched from the crowd, silently mourning my generous big brother Peter. Such a pure, trusting soul. Finding another mark like him wouldn't be easy. After splitting the spirit bugs, both groups spread through the manor grabbing everything valuable. There were a few scuffles between our men, but nobody died. Both sides kept it under control. Then we gathered to divide the big items, serfs, grain, and livestock. These things can't be hidden, so any cheating would be obvious. We found the numbers didn't match up. I'd grabbed an extra granary. They'd taken extra cattle. We sorted it out fast because everyone wanted to get moving before someone else showed up. As Boris's group loaded their last cart and disappeared into the wilderness, I had a problem. Over 100 corpses lay in Peter's manor, and every one of them was wasted material for my refining pot. I nearly stayed to collect them, but I couldn't risk it. Boris might have left watchers behind. I left the bodies and cursed Boris the whole way home. I'm a petty man. I put that loss on his tab. Back at the manor, I had parent inventory everything immediately. The 4 spirit bugs I'd already contracted. Wheat and soybean for farming, apple for magic herbs, and the damaged lily herb bug. 1,000 more serfs, The territory wouldn't need extra labor for a long time now. 3 enchanted crossbows from Peter's expensive collection, splitting 6 with Boris's side. About 2,000 gold dragons in coins and silverware combined. Piles of grain, livestock, tools, cloth, weapons, armor, and a few dozen barrels of wine. Peter, my dear big brother. Whatever I needed, he had it ready. This haul saved my territory 2 months of development. Boris probably got about the same. Standing over all this loot, something clicked in my head. The slow path, farming, building, saving, was too cautious. I needed to think bigger. I sent Hart to Oak City with all the cash to buy nothing but magic potions. I wasn't going to play the patient development game against Boris. With the newer bugs, I could now support more knights. Time to build strength fast. Perrin reported the 3 healthy spirit bugs had their grasses planted and fields assigned. But the damaged lily bug was in bad shape. Spirit grass half destroyed, the bug itself barely moving. That evening, I went to the spirit room alone. The little lily bug was lying on its grass, wilting, the tiny flower on its head drooping. I pulled out a bottle of diluted refining liquid and dripped it onto the spirit grass. Something amazing happened. The grass roots came alive, drinking in the liquid hungrily. I kept dripping. A green shoot pushed out from the damaged area, healing itself. The bug perked up and crawled to the wound, spitting on it, some kind of natural healing response. I kept feeding the liquid. The grass recovered rapidly. Then the bug lifted off, flying slow circles around its grass, sprinkling green light like dust. Through the contract bond, I felt what it was doing, a desperate attempt to evolve. The bug had decided to risk death for a chance to become a small sprite. I wasn't going to stop it. I kept dripping liquid, bottle after bottle, for half an hour straight. 2 full bottles used. Finally, the bug landed back on its grass and slowly wrapped itself in a cocoon. It stopped moving. Whether it lives or dies now is up to the bug itself. I can't do anything more. I tested the liquid on spirit bugs before when secretly adding it to the guard's soup. The effect on the bugs themselves was almost nothing. Only the spirit grass seemed to respond, growing slightly thicker. But this time, with a damaged bug pushed to the edge, the liquid triggered something unexpected. I'd keep watching. Within days, the other lords learned about Stone Creek's fall. Blackstone territory found out first. Their scouts discovered Peter's manor destroyed, bodies everywhere, wild animals feeding on the dead. Old Baron Horson couldn't figure out who had enough strength to breach Peter's defenses without massive casualties. He suspected River Bend or Riverside but couldn't understand how either would risk losing a high-rank fighter to Peter's enchanted crossbows. He told his people to watch both of us. Green Lake sent their usual messenger to ask what I knew. I put on my most innocent face and told him I'd been busy farming. Hadn't heard a thing. Maybe bandits. The frontier is full of them, right? The messenger didn't believe me, but had no proof to push further. I sent him home with empty pleasantries. After this, every lord in the area got noticeably more cautious. Nobody let their high-rank fighters leave their manors anymore. The frontier had just learned a lesson about what happens when you leave yourself exposed. 3 months in the frontier now. Arrived at the end of summer, and autumn is nearly over. I've finally got a solid foothold out here. Land, people, resources, military strength. Next goal, become the local bully and get real close with all my wonderful neighbors. I heard Boris's wife is one of the most beautiful women in this stretch of the frontier. Boris and I are kindred spirits, really. Men like us should share the good things in life. The celebration wine is already waiting for you, Boris. Meanwhile, Boris was digesting his own haul from Stone Creek. His Captain Locke reported 5 spirit bugs, 1,000 serfs, half a year's food, and 2,000 gold. Boris told Locke to keep watching me, but not pick fights. He called me a tough nut and said to focus on softer targets instead. They still had 2 other neighbors to squeeze. He ordered double magic potion rations for his knights and told Locke to scout for talented recruits. He wanted another high-rank squire in his territory. As for Stone Creek's empty land, Boris wasn't worried about other lords taking it. Grabbing territory is useless without gold to develop it and knights to defend it. Old Baron Horson wouldn't dare send his knights out now. And if he did, well, Boris wouldn't mind putting on the bandit mask again. Obviously, it would be Riverbend's fault. Everyone knows bandits only started appearing after I showed up. He does it far less frequently, he insists. 2 days later, Hart returned from Oak City with 2 carts packed with magic potions. Over 400 regular bottles and a few dozen high-quality ones for me personally. The Gray Bear merchant Marco gave him a good price, 2 to 3 gold each. Every coin I sent was spent. Last time it took less than 100 bottles for Loren to break through. Now it was Hart's turn. He'd been with me long enough, proven himself in action and loyalty, and his family was settled in my home territory, so I could trust him. I told him to drop everything and focus on his breakthrough. Potions unlimited. I also had Loren and Gray pick 8 guards who'd shown the most potential from the Meat Soup Regiment, 5 veterans and 3 newer recruits. Each got 10 bottles with orders to push for low-rank squire. The monthly potion allowance was set. Low-rank squires get 2 bottles, mid-rank 5, high-rank 10. Anything extra, they buy from me at a discount. Entry-level knights who just awakened their battle energy don't get monthly rations unless they show enough talent to be formally accepted as squires. My refining liquid reserves were dropping fast with all the feeding I was doing, so I ordered the patrols to expand their hunting range northward into the wilderness. But the thing on my mind most was the lily spirit bug in its cocoon. It sat in the spirit room on the softest cloth, surrounded by the finest jade powder. I checked it every day. Nothing moved. Perrin reported the same thing each time. No change. I always said the same thing. Keep waiting. Then one night, while I was planning construction at my desk, the contract bond suddenly pulsed with agitation. I ran to the spirit room. The cocoon had cracked. Pale green light flickered through the gap, pulsing like a heartbeat. I held my breath and watched. The crack widened. A tiny head pushed through, a little face with a small flower growing from the top. Then the whole body emerged. It worked. She evolved. A small sprite. She looked like a doll the size of my palm, with 2 pairs of transparent wings on her back. She spotted me, buzzed over, circled me twice like she was showing off, then landed on my shoulder. Too big I stared at me. She tilted her head and made a tiny chirping sound. Through the contract, I felt pure, clear affection. I stood there stunned for a long moment, then laughed out loud. I held out my hand, and she crawled into my palm, nuzzling my finger. "You'll be called Bella," I said quietly. She seemed to understand, bouncing twice with excitement. By morning, the whole territory knew. Perrin came running. Loren praised the heavens. Hart said he'd lived his whole life and never seen a spirit bug evolve. Only heard stories about it. Everyone was amazed. A small sprite lives 50 years, far longer than a spirit bug's 15 to 20. A small sprite covers 10 acres of magic herb field, double the bug's range, but the real value is quality. She produces ingredients for high-grade potions. That changes everything for my night training program. The first few days, Bella was shy. She hid inside my collar, peeking out sideways at people and ducking back in whenever someone looked at her. But once she got comfortable, she started flying all over the manor. She's curious about everything, playful and bold. She even tries to eat my food at mealtimes, makes a disgusted face every time, but keeps coming back for more. She's my first small sprite, and I watched her fight for her life to be born. That desperate courage, risking death to evolve when she was at her weakest, that's my kind of spirit. She takes after me. Half a month of peace. Nobody causing trouble. The frontier was quiet for once. Then Hart broke through. He walked out of his training room one evening, pale but steady, his presence twice as strong as before. He knelt in front of me and said he'd done it. 3 high-rank squires now. In this stretch of the frontier, nobody can match that. Loren grinned and challenged Hart to a sparring match. Hart laughed and accepted. Good energy between those two. The rest of the knights were advancing too. Marcus Apple and Robert Cabbage, both recruited from my family, broke through to mid-rank. That made 3 out of 5 family knights at mid-rank, with the last 2 still working on it. And 5 of the 8 guards I'd given potions to reached low-rank squire. Between the daily meat soup, the potions, and constant training, my territory's combat power was now among the strongest in this part of the frontier. Only the well-established territories deeper behind the front lines could compare. Bella had completely settled in. She flew everywhere, watching guards train from the wall top, sneaking into the kitchen for snacks, riding on my shoulder during inspections. Her favorite target was Perrin. She loved stealing pages from his account books and scattering them across the yard. The old man would chase her, and she'd fly just out of reach, chirping at him to keep going. He came to me holding a chewed-up ledger, begging me to control her. I looked at it, turned away, and said I didn't see anything. Bella popped her head out of my collar and stuck her tongue out at him. Poor parent. Meanwhile, somewhere in Green Lake Territory's port, people I didn't know about yet were passing through. A woman named Leoli Moonlight Rose was hiding in a second-floor room with her younger sister, sleeping in her arms. She was a Marquis's daughter from the White Lead Duchy, which had been destroyed in a war with the Greyton Kingdom. Her father died in battle, but managed to send some of his children to escape. They'd been running ever since, hunted by enemies. Their group had shrunk from over 40 people to just a dozen. Of their 2 high-rank squire guards, one was dead and the other badly wounded. Her old butler reported that the road east through the frontier would take 7 or 8 days, but the area was dangerous. Some lord had been wiped out recently. Leoli decided to take the longer route through the safer rear territories. She needed to reach her uncle, Count Birch, in the Black Iron Duchy's frontier. 2 more legs of the journey, and they'd be safe. Her guard captain asked about the people chasing them. She said coldly that if they caught up, he should take her sister and run while she stayed to fight. The butler talked her out of it. They'd disguise as a merchant caravan, hire local guides, and move fast. I knew nothing about any of this. But my spy at Green Lake's port had noticed something interesting. A group claiming to be fur traders, a dozen people, men and women, had arrived days ago, done some business, and left heading toward Oak City. Normal enough. But then another ship docked, and the new arrivals were asking around about that first group. These newcomers didn't look like merchants at all. Someone was being chased. Someone with secrets. I love secrets. The first group left a day ago with cargo and a guide. They hadn't come through my territory. I told my spy to watch the new arrivals closely and add more eyes on the situation. Loren asked me the obvious question. Are we getting involved? I didn't rush into anything. First, I needed to know what the second group, the pursuers, looked like and how strong they were. I gathered Loren, Hart, and 7 or 8 squires, left Gray to guard the manor, and rode out. We circled toward Green Lake territory, staying hidden in the northern wilderness. My spies said the pursuers would make their move today. Sure enough, that afternoon we spotted them from the tree-line. Over 20 riders, well-armed, moving fast along a dry riverbed heading south. The leader was a sharp-eyed, dangerous-looking middle-aged man. I left the horses with a squire and sent him back. The rest of us followed on foot. Horses make too much noise for tailing. We kept a mile behind, using the terrain for cover as the cold late autumn wind cut through us. At nightfall, about 20 miles south of Green Lake, campfire light appeared ahead. The fleeing group had made camp. The pursuers slowed, spread out, and crept forward. I watched through a telescope from behind a ridge. The camp had a few low-rank squires on watch, others resting against wagons. Their guard captain was leaning on a rock, face pale, bloodied bandages seeping through his chest wrappings. An old butler sat beside a young woman who was comforting a little girl of 7 or 8. Then the attack came. An arrow punched through a sentry's throat. Black figures poured from the darkness. The guard captain surged up despite his wounds, drawing his sword. The enemy had 2 high-rank fighters. The injured captain went all out against them, but was already losing after the first few exchanges. A mid-rank squire got surrounded by 3 enemies, killed 2, then collapsed in his own blood. The low-rank guards dropped one after another. The young woman, she had to be someone important. Disguised as merchants, hiding her identity, a magic user with powerful enemies chasing her. I didn't need to think hard to know she was highborn. Worth getting involved. She shoved her little sister into a female guard's arms and ordered them to run. The little girl screamed and cried, reaching for her sister. The woman hardened her expression and shouted at them to go. Once the child was away, the woman began casting. Pale blue light gathered at her fingertips. Magic. A low-rank mage apprentice. But magic is tricky to deal with regardless. She threw a cutting spell at the enemy leader, forcing him to dodge, which gave her captain an opening to wound his shoulder. The enemy leader sneered, a low-rank apprentice daring to challenge him, but couldn't ignore her. She'd thrown up a milky white shield they couldn't break through, then pulled out magic scrolls with power rivaling a high-rank squire's strike. She actually killed several pursuers, turning the fight into a stalemate. Impressive woman. But I wasn't watching the battle. I had something else to do first. I took my men and intercepted the fleeing little girl and her guard. The female guard drew her weapon. Who are you? What do you want? But the little girl, desperate, tears streaming, begged me. Please help. Please save my sister. We'll pay anything, I smiled. My price is very high. You might not be able to afford it. Anything, she cried. Everything we have. Just please hurry. I want your sister, I said. Can you agree to that on her behalf? The girl's face went blank. She looked toward the distant firelight where her sister was fighting for her life. Then, with a pained expression far too old for her age, she nodded. Yes, secret technique. Exploit people at their most desperate. I checked my personal skill list. Yep, right there at the top of my specialties. Just as the little girl agreed to my terms, an explosion of battle energy erupted from the camp. I looked back. The woman's white shield was cracking apart like a spider web, pursuers hammering at it from every angle. Her scrolls were almost used up. The situation was ugly. Her side was down to 4 or 5 people still breathing. The guard captain was covered in blood, his burst of desperate strength fading fast. The old butler tried to shield the woman when her barrier shattered and got kicked aside, lying motionless on the ground. The remaining guards fell one by one until the woman was backed against a wagon with nowhere to go. The little girl saw everything. Tears poured down her face, hands clamped over her mouth to stay silent. I looked at her. Remember our deal. I stood up and signaled. Loren, Hart, and the squires rose together, masks still on, only eyes showing. Go. 12 shadows burst from the darkness and hit the battlefield. I went straight for the enemy leader. He was mid-swing at the guard captain when he heard me coming. He spun and raised his sword just in time. Our blades clashed with a sound like a bell, and the impact drove him back 3 steps. Who are you? He shouted. I didn't answer. I just kept swinging. Every strike aimed to kill, heavy with battle energy, relentless. He was already wounded from earlier fighting, and my raw strength was too much for him. On the other side, Loren and Hart double-teamed the second high-rank pursuer. 2 against 1, with the injured guard captain still contributing what little he had left. The enemy fighter was good, but overwhelmed. My opponent screamed that he served some elk marquis from the Greyton Kingdom. I didn't care. I swung faster. After dozens of exchanges, his arms went numb from blocking my blows. He slowed down just enough for me to find an opening. My sword went through his side. Heavy wound. He'd already been fighting for a while. This finished him. I gave no rest, pressed harder, and ended it with a thrust through his throat. He stared at me wide-eyed, mouth moving, blood pouring out. I pulled my blade free and he collapsed. The other high-rank pursuer was losing badly too. He managed to cut Hart's arm, but Loren got him with a sword strike that slowed his movements. Then the woman, pale as paper, barely standing, magic nearly drained, forced herself upright and started casting again. A faint blue blade formed in her trembling hands. She aimed at the fighter's exposed back and threw everything she had left. The blade hit him from behind. He froze for just a heartbeat. Loren took his head off. It was over. The camp was a wreck, bodies everywhere. The surviving pursuers, maybe a handful, scattered into the night. My squires chased and killed a few, but lost the rest in the darkness. Hart came limping over with Lauren's help, grinning despite the cut on his arm. Just a scratch, he said. I walked over to the woman. She was leaning against the wagon, gasping for air, staring at me with a mix of wariness, suspicion, and confusion. Who are you? She asked, voice hoarse but still pleasant. I didn't answer. She scanned Loren, Hart, and the squires behind me, then looked back at my masked face. Where's Cecilia? I tilted my head. Anna, the female guard, walked out of the darkness carrying the little girl. Cecilia broke free the moment she saw her sister, stumbled across the ground, and threw herself into the woman's arms, crying. The woman's eyes softened for 1 second as she stroked her sister's hair. Then she looked back at me, all business again. She offered me all their valuables as payment, plus a generous reward once they reached their destination. I thought to myself, isn't the standard script supposed to be, I'll give you myself in gratitude? Did she not find me attractive? That stung. I crouched down to her eye level. Your sister already promised me something. The woman frowned and looked at Cecilia. The little girl shrank back and mumbled, Sister, this is your husband. Dead silence. The woman closed her eyes, took a deep breath, then another. I asked if she'd honor her sister's promise. She told me I was exploiting their desperation. I agreed cheerfully. That's one of my many specialties. She went quiet. She understood her position perfectly. No leverage, no strength left, a little sister to protect. Fighting me would only make things worse. I accept, she said through gritted teeth. Smart woman. I told her to start talking. Name, origin, destination, who was chasing her. She told me everything. Her name is Leoli Moonlight Rose, daughter of Marquis Moonlight Rose from the White-Lead Duchy. A court viscountess. She's fleeing to the Black Iron Duchy to reach her uncle, Count Birch. The pursuers were from the Grey Tin Kingdom that destroyed her homeland. A marquis's daughter. I smiled. Jackpot. Then I noticed she'd been pulling scrolls from nowhere during the fight. Spatial equipment, a bracelet. I asked for it, and she had no choice but to hand it over. She taught me how to use it. About 20 cubic meters of storage space inside, half filled with goods. Even a quick glance told me this haul alone made the whole night worth it. Her guard captain didn't make it. He'd been too badly hurt. Leoli's group was down to 3, herself, her little sister Cecilia, and Anna the female guard. I could have saved the captain. I chose not to. A dead captain means fewer complications and more dependence on me. After the battlefield was cleaned, no trace left. I loaded every corpse into the spatial bracelet. Much more convenient than the old pit-and-bonfire method. Then I led the 3 women through the night back toward my territory. We got back to the territory just before dawn. The pursuers had left plenty of horses behind, which made the ride easier. Leoli looked up at the manor with a complicated expression. Cecilia had fallen asleep in her arms, tear tracks still on her little face. Anna followed behind, eyes scanning everything. Perrin came out to greet us and froze when he saw 3 strange women. I told him to set up a room and assign 2 maids. No questions needed. As Leoli passed me, she stopped. Aren't you afraid I'll run? I pulled off my mask, letting her see my face for the first time. I tilted her chin up with my fingers and smiled down at her. With your little group? You'd be captured and sold as slaves before you made it a mile. And with that face of yours, you'd end up as the star attraction at some brothel. She went white, furious and terrified at the same time. She didn't say another word and followed Perrin inside. Back in my room, I pulled out the spatial bracelet and started going through everything. 20 cubic meters of storage, about half full. 2 large chests of gold coins, roughly 20,000 gold dragons. A box of noble quality jewelry, hard to price. The magic scroll cases were mostly empty. Leoli had burned through them during the journey. A small collection of potions I'd never seen before, clearly higher quality than anything my territory's useless apprentice produces. That guy once left solid chunks in my potion. I chewed twice before swallowing. Then I found the real treasure. Several crates of books. Most were potion recipes and alchemy records. Useful, but not life-changing. But the last 2 crates made my heart pound. One crate held battle energy manuals and advanced breathing techniques. 10 different combat systems with matching breathing methods, covering every element, all capable of training someone to full knight level. And 2 of them were high-grade techniques that could take a practitioner all the way to great knight. The other crate held mental cultivation methods and spell models for mages. This was priceless. In this world, knowledge is monopolized by the great noble houses. Even geniuses born among commoners can't advance without pledging loyalty to a lord just to access training materials. My own family only gave me 2 basic breathing techniques for soldiers. The family's secret arts stay locked in the family vault. I couldn't even bring them to the frontier. I'd been stuck for nearly 3 months at high-rank squire with my progress slowing to a crawl. No idea how to break through to full knight. My family had never produced one. Now I had a fire element high-grade breathing technique that matched my own attribute perfectly. I could switch to it immediately. For context, a full knight leaves the realm of ordinary humans entirely. They can go long periods without breathing, briefly hover using battle energy, survive extreme environments, and live to 200 years. Great knights live 500. Dragon knights live 1,000. They're the pillars of kingdoms, each with their own title. Mages follow the same progression: full mage, great mage, archmage, with matching lifespans. I skimmed the breakthrough chapter and immediately understood things that had been blocking me for months. Problems I couldn't solve just vanished. Considering all the dowry Leoli brought me, I decided I should take good care of her. Feed her well. Can't let the wife go hungry. The rest of the storage was minor: women's clothing, daily supplies, some beginner magic notes, a family genealogy. No spirit bugs. For a marquis's daughter, the wealth was modest, almost poor. But that made sense. If she'd been carrying the family fortune, the pursuers would have sent their best after her instead of treating her as a secondary target. I slept until evening, then went to the back courtyard. Lily was sitting by the window staring at nothing. Cecilia was sleeping peacefully. Anna stood guard by the bed. I sat down across from Lily, told her I'd buried her guards' bodies and disposed of the enemy corpses. She wouldn't have to worry about them being left in the wild. Her eyes flickered. Thank you. Then, straight to business. What do you plan to do with us, Baron? I introduced myself properly. Ron Broccoli, Lord of Riverbend, Pioneer Baron. How about you become my personal maid? I said. Her face flushed with anger and shame, but I watched her swallow it, ready to accept because her sister's safety depended on it. The emotions crossing her face were fascinating: pride, fear, resignation, determination. I laughed. Just kidding. She let out a breath of relief. But I do need someone to warm my bed, I added, completely serious. Her composure shattered again. Before she could recover, I changed the subject. I asked about her uncle, Count Birch. She told me he's a count in the Black Iron Duchy's frontier, serving as a legion commander responsible for defending against orc invasions. She'd written to him before her territory fell, but didn't know if the letter ever arrived. Since then, communication had been impossible. I warned her once. Think about your sister. Don't lie to me. You get one chance to correct anything. Want to change your answer? She shook her head. She really couldn't contact him. I asked many more questions. I didn't believe everything she said. A woman this smart would mix 9 truths with one lie. But the immediate picture was clear. The escaped pursuers didn't know who attacked them. Leoli's group wasn't even a priority target. The main family treasures went with other escape parties. Her father had deliberately kept her group small, and poor so his 2 favorite daughters might survive unnoticed. The pursuers might not come looking again. The bigger concern was Count Birch. Leoli said she couldn't reach him now, and I believed her. But later? A clever woman always finds a way. I didn't want a full night showing up at my door one day asking questions. How to handle that problem? I'd figure it out when the time came. After talking with Leoli, I stepped outside and found Cecilia squatting in the courtyard, watching Bella. The little sprite was hovering in front of her, tilting her head curiously. Cecilia reached out a timid hand, and Bella landed right in her palm and nuzzled her fingers. The kid's eyes lit up. Leoli came out and froze when she saw Bella. A small sprite. She'd had them before, back when her family still existed. All gone now. Cecilia tugged her sister's sleeve and whispered, "Is this my brother-in-law?" She hadn't seen my real face until now and was studying me shyly. Leoli's expression went flat, but I smiled warmly and told Cecilia that yes, she should call me that from now on. This was her home. She could play wherever she wanted. She lit up and chased Bella around the courtyard, laughing for the first time in what must have been weeks. Leoli watched her sisters smile, and for just a moment, her guard dropped. Then she looked at me. "Promise me one thing. Protect Cecilia. She's just a child." I nodded. Done. We ate dinner together as the sun went down. 3 shadows stretching long across the ground, starting to overlap. That night, I slipped into her room. She was awake. She'd been expecting it, even if she didn't want to admit it. I won't go into details, but let's just say the Marquis's daughter became a woman that night. By morning she was thoroughly exhausted, still asleep, unable to move. I got up feeling like a new man. Months of frustration, gone in one night. Mage constitution is too fragile though. I'm going to need to find some night-trained women eventually. For a moment, I actually missed Lady Irina back in the Marquis's territory. In the courtyard, Anna was helping Cecilia wash up. She made eye contact with me and immediately looked away, face burning red. She'd heard everything through the wall last night. Cecilia asked why her sister wasn't up yet. I told her Leoli was still recovering from injuries she got fighting the pursuers and needed to rest in bed today. The kid accepted it without question. Anna pursed her lips but said nothing. After breakfast, I left Cecilia to play in the manor and headed to the meeting hall. Everyone was already assembled. I told them the territory had reached a new stage and wanted to hear suggestions for next steps. Dick, ever the flatterer, suggested building a grand castle to show off our power. Perrin hesitated, so I told him to speak freely. He pointed out the treasury couldn't support castle construction yet. Winter was coming, which meant field work would stop. We had 15,000 acres of farmland and over 6,000 serfs, but our grain stores wouldn't last. We'd need to keep buying. I allocated 2,000 gold dragons to the food budget from my new windfall and told Perrin to spend it as needed. I also gave orders for winter work. No idle serfs. They'd dig irrigation ditches, build more farm structures, and start preparing the layout for a proper town. By next year, I wanted a real town established and the manor serfs relocated there. Loren reported on military strength. 130 guards, close to 10 low-rank squires from the original family veterans. With the population growing, he recommended recruiting 70 more guards to reach 200. I agreed. Hart, who now runs the hunting parties, had cleared most of the nearby wilderness. He'd been pushing north into the open frontier for game. Then he dropped something interesting. He discovered a serpent folk tribe about 20 miles north. Roughly 200 of them. Not enough information yet to know their strength. I told him to avoid that area for now. Also told him to stop killing every wild creature in the territory. Leave some around. When the reports were done, I addressed everyone. We'd been in the frontier for over 3 months. I was pleased with the progress. I announced that once the duchy officially confirms our pioneering success next year, I'd be granting landed knight titles to those who've earned them. That's the dream every one of my followers came here chasing. Land of their own, a family name, a legacy. I know how to dangle that carrot. Sometimes you have to remind people what they're working toward. They left the hall fired up and went straight back to work. Good. Keep grinding for Baron Broccoli. The next few days were the most comfortable I'd had since arriving in this world. Daytime, I handled territory business. Nighttime, I visited Lioli's courtyard. Mage constitution is fragile, but novelty makes up for it. She went from resisting to getting used to it, and eventually started meeting me halfway. But I'm not foolish enough to think she's tamed. A marquis's daughter who's seen the world doesn't truly submit just because she has no options. Winning her over would take time. The maids were gossiping, of course. They noticed me heading to the back courtyard every night. One of them apparently walked in on us one morning while I was still there. Another one joked she wished I'd visit her instead. The usual servant nonsense. As long as Perrin keeps them in line, I don't care. Speaking of hygiene, the reason I never touched any woman in my territory before Lioli is simple. Nobody bathes. Get close and the smell hits you like a wall. Caked dirt everywhere. Impossible. So one of the first things I did with my free time was order Dick to build a dozen outhouses inside the manor. Anyone caught relieving themselves anywhere else gets the whip. Dick is perfect for this kind of enforcement. He's useless at real work, but excellent at terrorizing serfs. I officially made him manor steward. One morning, I stopped by the spirit room. Bella was crouched in front of the corn spirit bug, poking it. The fat little thing was shaking in its jade box, trying to disappear. Bella chirped at it a few times, got impatient when it wouldn't play, kicked it out of its box, and curled up inside to claim the spot for herself. The corn bug crawled away looking heartbroken. I pulled Bella out and pointed her to her own jade box with the silk cushion and leaf decorations. She flew over reluctantly, tested the padding, and finally settled in. The corn bug crept back to its home. This little sprite is becoming a tyrant. I spend half an hour in the spirit room every day bonding with the bugs. Tradition says it increases their chances of evolving. Centuries of practice have confirmed it works. Besides, these creatures are impossible not to love. I'd given Cecilia a puppy to keep her occupied so she wouldn't cling to Lioli all day. The kid was rolling around with it in the courtyard, giggling. Anna sat by the door watching, smiling for once. Cecilia asked Anna when her sister's injuries would heal. Anna turned red and mumbled something about soon. Cecilia sighed and said her sister deserved rest after everything she'd been through. Anna bit her tongue. When I walked in, Cecilia ran up to me. "Brother-in-law, can you catch me a kitten? I keep hearing a cat crying at night." Really close by, so clear, I froze. Anna covered her mouth, trying not to laugh. I patted the kid's head and promised to find her one, then got out of there as fast as I could. Lioli was at her desk reading. She blushed slightly when I came in, but wasn't as shy as before. Again? In broad daylight, she started. I coughed and held up a jar of healing salve. She did have real wounds from the battle that still needed treatment. I started applying it to her injuries, and after a while she murmured something about the ointment feeling damp. I checked it and said damp medicine works better. Things progressed from there naturally. Quite a bit later, we got around to actual business. I'd brought some of her magic textbooks, the beginner ones. I wanted to try learning magic. She looked surprised but started teaching. Mental power, meditation, sensing elements, constructing spell models. I listened carefully for half an hour, then gave up. This stuff is harder than math. Forget it, I waved my hand. I'll stick to battle energy. I'm a fighter. Simple and brutal suits me. She actually laughed, a real, unguarded laugh. She said my battle energy talent was excellent and I shouldn't waste effort on magic. I pulled out the scrolls and potions from her storage bracelet and asked her to sort them. She identified each one, which scrolls were spent, which were still usable, which potions restored mental power, which healed, and which ones were poison. I memorized everything. Then I returned her personal magic notes and study materials. I'd already had copies made. The originals were useless to me. I also told her about the potion recipes I'd copied from her collection and suggested she visit the territory's potion workshop to teach my apprentice. That guy is hopeless. I once found solid chunks in a potion he brewed. Lily agreed quietly. This arrangement was working out well. She gets safety and comfort. I get companionship, magic knowledge, and a qualified potion advisor. Cecilia gets a home and a puppy. Everyone wins. Well, everyone except Lioli's dignity. But she was adapting faster than I expected. Perrin came to me with bad news about grain prices. Baron Austin at Green Lake had raised them 20%, claiming a bad harvest. That greedy merchant. No wonder Boris wanted to crush him. I told Perrin to send someone to Oak City instead and buy for Marco at the Gray Bear Trading Company. Our dock was finished, so they could ship by river while the water was still unfrozen. Buy in bulk. Loren reported that Boris was recruiting soldiers and training harder than before. His territory had too many outposts for our spies to get close enough for details. I wasn't surprised. Boris was growing too. He has a deeper foundation than me, and even with my 3 high-rank squires, a real fight would be dangerous. But neither of us was ready for open war yet. I was in the middle of switching to the new fire attribute breathing technique from Lioli's collection, which meant my combat strength wasn't at its peak. Though honestly, in raw physical power alone, I was confident I could beat any high-rank squire. The refining pot had pushed my body beyond normal limits. Hart came back with full intelligence on the serpent tribe to the north. About 240 of them, half elderly and children. 70 or 80 real fighters. Their chief is a serpent priest with several sub-leaders. They live in a cave system with water and stored food, getting ready for winter. These aren't like goblins or kobolds. Useless trash that any squad of soldiers can handle. Beast folk tribes are real fighters. Every warrior is a magical creature who cultivates a blood-and-body fighting method. Individually, they match knights, but they decline sharply with age while knights stay strong until their final years. Mages get even better with age. Their power comes from knowledge and mental strength. The one advantage humans always have is iron. Knights wear armor and carry steel swords. Beast folk have almost no metal, just scraps from wild dragon deposits and weapons looted from battles. So knights can fight outnumbered, and even regular soldiers can hold their own with proper equipment and numbers. 80 fighters was manageable, but not worth the risk right now. I'd wait until my knight roster grew, then wipe them out. As for the refining pot's raw material, I'd moved past monster meat. I'd been using the liquid refined from the enemy knights and soldiers killed in recent battles. No, I didn't have any moral hang-ups about it. I just waited until Loren and Hart tested it first to make sure it was safe. It was much more potent than beast meat. My body had climbed another level. I didn't know exactly what changes a full knight's body undergoes, but in pure strength, I was already there. That evening I found Lioli sitting by the window, lost in thought. I wrapped my arms around her from behind and asked what she was thinking about. She leaned into me and said she'd been worrying about the future. Her sister was young, and she couldn't just stay like this forever. I asked if she felt mistreated here. She shook her head and whispered that she liked it. So quiet I barely heard. She'd thought things through. Her uncle was just a hope. She'd never actually met him. Even if they reached him, they'd be living on someone else's charity with nothing to their name. She'd spent months running with her sister, and all she really wanted was a safe place to stop. She was only 19. She'd kept her father's last wish, kept Cecilia alive. Now she could finally let her guard down. And her man wasn't bad-looking, she admitted to herself. Strong body too. Not a bad deal. I told her I'd build her a magic tower next year. Her eyes lit up. She turned to look at me, genuinely happy. A magic tower is every mage's dream, their own space for study and practice. She asked if I was serious. I told her I never lie. Then I told her to go put on the maid outfit I'd given her. Ever since the first time, it turned out she had a certain preference. She enjoyed it more than I expected. The nights were getting better and better. Lioli was loosening up, shedding the last of her rigid, noble composure. That particular evening, she was especially enthusiastic, like weeks of tension finally breaking free. By the end, she was spent, and I took over to bring things to a gentle close. She fell asleep listening to my breathing, a small smile on her face. For the first time since I'd met her, she looked peaceful. Outside, the manor settled into quiet. The approaching winter had silenced the crickets. Night shift serfs huddled in their shelters, whispering gossip. Someone said the Lord hadn't been seen for 3 days straight. Another argued that was impossible. He'd once eavesdropped through a wall, and it only lasted as long as a quick meal. They went around the group, and nobody had spotted me recently. The Lord sure has good fortune, someone sighed. It rained last night. The air turned cold fast. Winter was closing in. I've been in Riverbend for 110 days now, over half a year since I crossed into this world. 2 more months until the new year. I've built something real here, and I've got a marquis's daughter in my bed. Life is progressing nicely. After breakfast, I toured the territory in the rain with an umbrella. The training hall was busy, Loren coaching the knights through indoor battle energy practice. The first batch of 50 guards had been given the breathing technique, and many were close to touching the threshold of battle energy. No standout geniuses, though. True talent mostly shows up in noble bloodlines. Commoners with real gifts exist, but they're rare. My meat soup supply could only keep up with the 80 guards on the breathing program. The rest got a bowl every few days at best. But progress was clear. The ones with even modest talent were being marked for focused training. Everyone's talent is different. Some cultivate fast. Some have high drug tolerance and can drink more potions per day. Some recover battle energy quicker naturally. The original Ron had decent talent, upper middle tier. He went from awakening battle energy to low-rank squire in just 1 year at the Marigold Knight Order, where beginners weren't allowed potions. After that, he'd slowed down, probably because the original Ron was too busy chasing women and burning through his vital energy. Cecilia ambushed me on the way back, tugging at my coat. "Brother-in-law, where's my kitten?" Those bright eyes stared up at me, full of expectation. I told her soon, same as last time. She pouted and said I'd promised that before. Anna laughed behind her hand. I patted the kid's head and swore this time was for real. Rainy days are a break for the serfs. No field work, meals still provided, no whipping. Keeping them dry is just common sense. A sick serf costs money. Back at the study, Perrin had good news. The grain from Marco at the Grey Bear Company had arrived by river, unloaded directly at our dock. 20% cheaper than Austin's inflated Green Lake prices. That greedy old fox tried to gouge me. He'll regret it. Marco also sent a warning. Oak City was tense. Some territories in the north had been overrun by orcs. I figured it was the annual winter raids. The main thrust wasn't aimed at our area this year, but I told Perrin to have Loren increase patrols in case small raiding parties wandered our way. At lunch, the rain stopped and sunlight poured through the windows. I found Lioli reading a magic textbook, looking so beautiful in the warm light that all I could think was, she's mine. I called her over. She blushed but came and settled into my arms. We sat like that quietly until Cecilia burst in announcing she was hungry, with Bella flying in behind her chirping at a piece of roast meat. At the table, Cecilia asked if I'd come eat with them every day. I said yes. She grinned and went back to shoveling food. Lioli didn't say anything, but the corner of her mouth turned up. Then the afternoon shattered. A messenger from Oak City kicked through the door, dropped to one knee, and handed me a scroll sealed with Marquis Mammon's crest. Orcs, a massive army, pushing south. Multiple castles in the north had already fallen. The Marquis was calling every frontier lord to muster at Iron Rock Fortress within 5 days. No exceptions. The requirements were clear. The lord must go personally, bring at least 50 soldiers, supply your own food, weapons, and horses. During the mobilization, all hostilities between frontier territories are strictly forbidden by the Marquis' order. I asked if everyone was called. The messenger confirmed, Riverside, Black Stone, Green Lake, Thicket Ridge, every registered lord. After he left, I leaned back in my chair. I'd barely been here 4 months, and now I had to march off to war. Felt like the universe was targeting me personally. I called for Loren, Hart, Perrin, and Leoli. Time for a war council. Half an hour after the messenger left, we were in the meeting hall. I slapped the summons on the table and let everyone read it. The mood went dark fast. Perrin pointed out what everyone was thinking. First-line lords have never been called up before. We're supposed to guard our own land, not march off to some fortress. Loren said there was only one explanation. This year's orc invasion was far worse than anything before. Bad enough that the Marquis needed every sword he could get. Hart asked about the Serpent tribe up north. Turns out they'd been scouting escape routes into mountain valleys, not raiding, but fleeing. Even the beast folk were running from whatever was coming south. That told me everything I needed to know about how serious this was. I made the call. We go. No choice. I'd take Loren and Hart with me, both high-rank squires. Gray and the other 2 mid-rank squires stay behind to guard the manor. Boris has to answer the same summons, so he won't have time to cause trouble. The Serpent tribe is trying to hide, not fight. I told Perrin to hold everything together, protect the spirit bugs, and keep the manor standing. If any bandits show up while I'm gone, I'll deal with them when I return. Leoli offered to come. She's a mage and could help. I told her no. The battlefield would be chaos. I couldn't protect her, and the territory needed her more than I did. She could run the potion workshop while Hart was away. Then I said something I'd been thinking. If she wanted to escape, this was her chance. But if she was still here when I came back, she'd never leave again. She buried her face in my chest and said one thing: come back alive. That night, she gave me her shield amulet, an alchemical device that could block a few high-rank attacks if I found an energy stone to recharge it. Not powerful, but it could save my life at the right moment. We spent the whole night together. By morning, she couldn't get up. I felt fine. Cecilia caught me at the gate. Brother-in-law, when are you coming back? Soon. After the fighting, she nodded seriously. Don't forget my kitten, I laughed and promised. Then I mounted up and gave the order to move. 50 elite guards in polished armor, 10 supply wagons, 2 high-rank squires flanking me. We rode out as Cecilia waved from the manor gate until we disappeared over the horizon. By midday, we hit a crossroads and ran into Boris's column, about 100 men under the potato banner. He rode up beside me, all smiles, suggesting we watch each other's backs at the front lines. Neighbors helping neighbors. I nearly choked. This man burned my village, sent spies to my salt mine, and tried to get every lord in the area to attack me. Now he wanted to be allies? He'd use me as a meat shield the moment things got ugly. I politely declined. He shrugged it off without a hint of embarrassment and rode away. Loren asked what that was about. I told him not to worry. Whatever Boris was planning, it wasn't friendly. I also noticed Boris had been recruiting and training hard before the summons. He probably knew about the call-up in advance through his connections. Later, I spotted Blackstone Territory's column and rode up to greet old Baron Horson for the first time. We chatted pleasantly. Then I tried Boris's exact move on him. Suggested we combine forces for mutual protection. The old man's smile froze. He stammered something about his bad leg and practically galloped away from me. His men probably told him I was some kind of schemer. Looking at his retreating figure, I sighed dramatically. What has the world come to? No trust between neighbors. For 2 more days we marched, passing more and more lord columns heading the same direction. The atmosphere grew heavier with every mile. Soldiers spoke less. Horses sensed it too. Near evening on the last day, the outline of mountains appeared on the horizon. Iron Rock Fortress.